Is it recording? Did you go? Oh, there we go. Yeah.
It's recording.
And so if we were to kind of compare it to like real sculpting, we were looking at that a little bit last week too, with the horse and the cowboy and whatnot, in terms of starting with the armature and then building things up slowly on top and then going through a refining stage. But if we were to compare that, let's take a look at, and it's, a typical sculpting process is you start with the larger forms and then you're just kind of gradually, working away and refining, and then eventually adding in like the smaller micro details like pores and things like that. So this first image up here. This is kind of where, maybe if you're not there today, by the end of this week, this is where, you should be. This is like really crude blocking. And then by next Wednesday, when I'm going to be reviewing your rough sculpts a little bit more thoroughly, the next Wednesday is actually a more of a one-on-one session, just to go through individual issues you might be coming up with, or methodologies, which will be more creature specific because everybody's creature is a little bit different. So, we're going to be kind of around this stage probably. So next week is week 4. And then this is due in week 5. So that gives you 1 week to take it to, around maybe, well, not that this guy's still missing an eyeball, around this stage where we have a relatively good base. So, the muscles are defined, the volumes are properly formed. But, still those micro details aren't there. You might have the odd little, wrinkle and, but things like scales and pores or blemishes, that's definitely not going to be there. And then you're going to have a week to go from here to add in, a reasonable amount of finer details, which is what you're going to be submitting in week 5 for the final sculpt. Remember, this isn't retopologize. This is really just the bigger details. We're going to go through the retopology process, and then continue adding and texturing up with the details. Now, some of this could all just be done in ZBrush, or we're going to look at taking it into Substance Painter as a way to maybe looking at different materials and material properties there. They handle things a little bit differently.
Are we going to be relying on, sorry to interrupt,
oh, yeah, no interrupting, yep.
So when it comes to the details that will end up by becoming more of a displacement map, is that more heavily in ZBrush or more heavily in Substance Painter, or a bit of both?
Yeah, right. The big details are definitely going to be Substance Painter. What we'll maybe use not Substance Painter, ZBrush. I take that back, ZBrush.
Right.
Substance Painter is going to be more for micro details, where it's not actually physically having to push the surface as much. Right. We can get a little bit out of that, because eventually what we'd have to do is layer the two textures together. It's similar to kind of a Mari ZBrush approach, where you actually then have to combine the different displacements. Mari is something that I don't really know how to use at the moment. It's something I wanted to look at near the end of the summer, but then I got busy getting ready for the school year. So, and we don't actually have it in the lab either, so there wasn't really the incentive for me to.
So when it came to skin details, like say the pores of the skin,
right?
Which package would you use for that? Would it be ZBrush or would it be Substance Painter?
It depends. It depends. I would consider using ZBrush. So if we look at let me just switch or just move this over here for a second here. So if we're to go in here, and if I were to, let me just go to my ArtStation page where there's some, not Photoshop, ArtStation, where there's a little bit more of a work in progress here. So something like this with the skin, I would do that I did that in Substance Painter. So let me see. I don't want to go out of this though. Look at my face. Let's see, I think we've got, can I expand these? No, that just goes into Pinterest.
Yeah, Chris, at the bottom of the image, there should be or in the middle actually, there's a little square. Sorry, the bottom middle. There's a little overlay.
Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. I feel like I had a 4K image, but maybe it's my monitor is a little bit of a higher resolution. So let me zoom in just a bit. Let's see. So things like the lip details and nose might be a bit shiny, but cheek and things. There's actually sections in Substance Painter that you can just basically rub on, almost like a decal, for that level of bump and whatnot. And so for that, and the cool thing with Substance Painter is it actually gives you the right amount, well, to a certain degree, of specularity. So you get the right amount of roughness and metallic properties, subsurface depth, and things like that. So for regular skin, it's pretty good, and other objects as well, particularly when you get into things like cloth or more inanimate types of objects. So it's actually quite good at those types of things. But
with my creature, I had it's you remember the flying reindeer kind of creature.
yes.
So
From Crawl.
the skin was going to be much like that Labrador dog, where the fur is so short, so close to the body that you
Right.
wouldn't even think it was hair. It's almost like it's an interesting part of the skin. How would you go about creating that? Would you actually use fur, or is there a trick in ZBrush or Substance Painter that can trick the eye?
Right. There are some fur brushes and fur materials you could try out. I would almost suggest using real fur, but I mean, you are going to want to, for the musculature, that would be a combination of displacement, but it's also something that's going to have to be retopologized so that you physically have those forms as part of your lower res mesh to a certain degree.
So make the real fur then, even no matter how short it is, real fur is the best.
Because we are kind of trying to go for a bit higher end. It would be real fur if it was like a studio, for the most part, or a combination of the two where you'd have real fur. So at least you'd see the odd strands in silhouette, and then there might be some kind of fur texture underneath that to kind of fill in the gaps where you would see through. But yeah,
that sounds good. Thank you, Christian.
Yeah, no worries. If it was like something on TV, then there would be definitely a texture. It's rare you're going to see. Well, I guess that's not true. You see more fur nowadays than you don't, I guess. But I don't know if you guys have seen stuff on TV. It's usually just fairly kind of slapped on. Everything's an equal length and more or less. I'm just thinking of like Bo and the Rainbow Kingdom and things like that. And is that right? Bo and the Rainbow Kingdom? Oh,
actually, that's a new one on me. You'd think I'd know that one.
Or whatever. Or what's the one that is by Guru? True and Bo. True and the Rainbow Kingdom, where there's like a cat and the characters actually do have well, I guess not. Yeah, no, there's no fur. I was wrong, and the hair's a texture. Yeah, so I lied, but I swear I saw some hair on one of the characters because I did make a mental note of that, but not these characters.
Well, you see the little green creature in the middle and to the left, the green creature, isn't that furry?
It looks maybe it might be a velvety type. It looks like it's in a bag.
Oh,
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, right. Somebody sneezed.
Yeah, so. But yeah, here's one that has hair, like this guy, this purple guy. Yeah. So there's the odd hairy creature, but something like this is really just defaulty. It's slapped on with a bit of a noise, basically, and then
that reminds me a lot of the Trolls movie.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, there's yeah, I wonder how much of that's actually hair and how much of that is some kind of a textural trick of some kind, but yeah, something like that.
Gotcha.
All right, so let's go back to attendance before I get sidetracked and forget about it again. So let me go into stop sharing and go to sculpting. And attendance is not a graded thing, so but the school, again, they're being a little bit uptight about keeping track of all this stuff, so I just got to make sure I remember. All right, so I'll just go through the list. So we're in is it week 3?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't do attendance last week. Yeah, so let me just quickly mark everybody here last week. So I have to remember that P is present and A is absent, as opposed to A being for excellent. So let me just give everybody P's here from last week. All right, and I'm gonna save that, close, and let's just open the next one. Here, I might as well share this with you guys. And all right, cool. So Jem,
I'm here.
awesome. Zhanglin,
I'm here.
awesome. Arthur,
Good morning.
morning. David, you're here. Yachi,
I'm here.
all right. Farzana, you're here. Alice, you're here.
Yeah, hello.
Hey, and
Okay.
you, yep.
Yeah,
Yufei,
yeah.
you're here. Yeah, we had a conversation. Tian,
I'm here. Good morning.
morning. Eric,
Hello. Morning.
hey. Kumi,
Hey.
hey. Jonathan, you're here.
Morning.
Morning. Paul,
Here.
all right. Near,
Morning.
morning. And Heaven,
Hello.
morning. And Chen,
I'm here.
all right. Everybody's here. You guys are the best. A+. Yeah, I've got one computer animation group, CA1, I think it is. They consistently so far have been maybe 80% here. They're the only group. The other group seems to be 100%, but awesome. Let's keep it up.
Yay.
And why not? You guys are paying to be here, so it makes sense. So, and I'm pretty sure you guys are all here for Monday's class. So I'll just make sure I go back or maybe next Monday I'll go through the 2 weeks or whatever it is. All right. Anyhow, so let's go into today's stuff. Oh, we're just going to quickly review your final packages. And then we're just going to get into, which will probably take us to break maybe a bit sooner. And then we're going to get back into ZBrush. There's a bunch of things I want to talk about and some methodology as you start fleshing out your character, particularly introducing polygroups. And if you didn't watch the first video, hiding and unhiding elements to work specifically on various pieces. We'll look at how we can approach the mouth, and then also adding in additional polygroups for things like gums and teeth, or if you have spikes or fins and things like that, approaches for that. So we'll look at creating insert mesh brushes, maybe putting some stuff along curves. We'll look at the new extractor brushes, which are pretty awesome. And we'll also create some vector displacement brushes today as well, so VDMs. We just have to be careful because a lot of this stuff we can also use for getting into more refined sculpting, and that's something I want to make sure you're avoiding until after your main forms are approved next week in class. So again, between now and next week, we really just want to focus on the musculature and proportions and just the shapes, just to make sure on a larger scale, everything's kind of falling into place. And we need to really get that nailed down before we can start going crazy with scales and even wrinkles and things like that. We need to know where the bending bits are before we can emphasize the wear and tear, which is what wrinkles are and whatnot. So just from constant moving and loss of elasticity in the skin. So we want to, again, get those forms in place. All right, so let's check out.
Chris, did you ever check out the new cloth brushes for like large wrinkles and stuff like that?
Yeah, we are going to look at that, and I definitely want to use that for that. Now with Dynamesh, though, especially when we get into higher poly counts, it doesn't work. I tried it with my sculpt the other day. I had 4 million polys, and there's a cap on how many polys you can have. those types of wrinkles, like especially for skin folds and whatnot, they do work better on lower resolution models, from my understanding. So it's something we might want to do after we've either maybe decimated it lower or possibly retopologized it somewhat.
Okay.
But we are gonna look at that for sure. I'm actually pretty excited about that. But it's new. It's only been around for 2 months, and to be honest, I haven't had a chance to really incorporate it into my workflow so much yet. But it definitely looks very promising. All right, so let's go back here. Oh, that's cool. So you guys have got some really neat elements going on. So it's transparent.
Yeah, I noticed. I don't know why they're. I just uploaded mine too, and it's transparent as well.
I wonder if we throw. Yeah, weird. It's almost as if it's a wireframe.
It seems like the first time we tried this, everything was fine, but now they're transparent.
Maybe they're working on some stuff over at SyncSketch. I don't know. All right, we'll come back to this in a second. So the sculpts that are rough that are here, it's probably a good idea to review. So let me just take a note of the names, just so that I can bounce between the. Here, let me just open up a new tab between your design and your sculpt. Which are here. The designs. All right, so let me see. So let me just have a sip of water, hot water, which is no longer boiling, so that's good. All right. So we're gonna go through this in order. Let's see. Let's just open this up. 3-letter acronym. I'm assuming that's Jonathan?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, there's been some discussion with faculty about being consistent with this. So I guess maybe in the future, once we get into the sculpt hand-in, I'll have something in place for a code. It's important, right? It's important to be consistent.
Dan made a sheet last week for us. So everyone that was in CA last year, we have our same code that we're using, and then everyone else got to find new ones.
Right.
What's the code
important
for sculpting?
Yeah, I don't know, something. Digital creature. I don't know. We'll come up with some kind of 3-letter acronym at some point. But and I can see that. For me, though, just because I'm thinking selfishly at this point, just in terms of being able to understand who submitted and what the project is. The codes, they don't mean anything to me, right? They're just random 3 letters that I'll never remember who's who. So I always rely on this part. If you guys can see, like, your name, and if I can see what it is, then that's good, because it's going to be associated directly to your name just from the hand-in. Before, again, thinking selfishly, I could see the importance of it when we were using Shotgun, because it just made it easy to do keyword searches for example, for the interstitial models, like IMO, for example. I think that was the acronym for that. So I could type in that, and then all of a sudden, everybody's interstitial models would just all automatically populate. So it made it very convenient to find and isolate and track down things. But since we're not using Shotgun this year, and I have to very quickly be able to go through and mark things, just because of the way the things set up with all the extra students with computer animation as well, that selfishly it's less important to me, but I can understand the importance of it, because in the industry, when you guys go out, there are going to be very similar types of naming conventions and structures out there that you will have to follow, or you could be fired if you don't. So I will come up with something just so I'm consistent, but just so you know where I am and why I haven't really bothered at this point, that's why. But for the next submission, or for the next methodology submission, I'll have a list of all the projects so you guys can follow that, and we can be on the same page as the other courses, if you guys are okay with that.
Okay.
Awesome.
Good.
All right. So let's see. Camaro design package. Nice. Cool. Yeah, so this guy's cool. I like it. So he's got that wildebeest, and so I'll read through all this stuff outside of class, but this is cool. Yeah, so as I was mentioning, when we get into spikes and this stuff, I'm almost thinking it's probably better to go separate geometry for these things. They'll stick in place through stickies, as Dennis calls them. That'll just kind of follow along with the skin. It'll just be a lot easy to rig, especially if they need to move and whatnot. And it just does a better job of adhering to the surface and not having to worry about doing some really kind of painful weight painting and stuff like that to make sure that they maintain volume. So separate geometry would probably be ideal for at least the ones along the back. Even things like horns and stuff like that, I would consider doing that separate geometry as well. Now, if you've already started modeling as all one piece, that's fine. We could always just separate things out a little bit, or just remove some parts and just reposition them. There's some things we'll do to make it super quick to do that type of thing.
Question,
yep.
Chris. So I made the spikes separate, but the membrane, like on the skin that holds it, can that be on the mesh, or would that be part of the separate geometry and then blended into the skin?
Right. That's a good question. That's a good question.
I was thinking of putting the. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a good question because you could have the membrane as part of the skin. Now, there's always that possibility, though, when things are flexing, depending on how extreme things move, that it could become slightly separated. But really, that's going to depend on how you retopologize it. If you retopologize it, in a smart way, then everything should more or less stick together, I think. So I think having the membrane part, almost like like the cuticle, I guess you're talking about, that could be on the geometry itself, I think.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, but it looks like there's going to be hair on the creature, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's going to get covered up anyway, so you would never see any kind of sliding or any of that. So if it goes far up the horn, though, like a cat's cuticle, which actually goes a little bit further up the nail, then I would consider then actually having it part of the horn.
Okay.
Or part of the spikes. So it really depends on how far up. If it's just like kind of a surface detail that's a little bit extruded, and then the spike comes out of that, then I would have it on the body. But if it's something that goes all the way up the spike, like even like a third of the way up, then I would have it on the spike, because you would never really see where it connects in because of the hair that's going to be there. So
okay.
You probably want to do a little bit of blending in, and a little bit of the odd wrinkling or fleshy buildup around each one, and that would be on the actual sculpt of the body. So we'll look at that. We'll look at that today in some examples.
Okay, cool.
Cool. So anything that would normally be separate, like fingernails or spikes, horns, eyeballs, obviously, gums and teeth and tongue, I would consider doing those separate. Arguably tongue. It depends on if you're going to see like detail inside the mouth, like if you're actually going to have the camera fly in. If you are, then tonsils and the tongue might be better as part of the inner mouth, just because the tongue does connect underneath at the lower palate, so all that's kind of interconnected. But if you're not, the upper lower palate, I'd consider maybe doing as separate geometry as well. Although now that I say that, I might actually do that as part of my main body, but the teeth should definitely be separate. So teeth, nails, horns, anything that's really kind of that I'm forgetting the name for it, like the keratin. What was that called? Like that shrimp shells, is it keratin? What the fingernails are made out of? What is that?
I think that's right.
All right, I'm going to go with it then. But anything like that, we can separate out. It just makes our life so much easier for a variety of reasons, particularly with the rigging and texturing, all that stuff. It'll be a lot easier too. And with retopology, you're not going to want to have to retopologize the entire body and then work out the topology of each of these spikes. That would just be crazy. That would take forever. So you're better off, retopologing one spike and then even reduplicating them out once you've got that in place to a certain degree. It'd just be so much faster that way. All right, but looks cool. Let's just keep going through this. So yeah, so you're looking at cat musculature and whatnot.
Yes, yeah.
Cool.
And then for the tail, I just kind of looked at lizard tails.
Right, and the skeletally, it looks cool. And these are some of the workups that you did. This is nice to see. Nicely done. Different
Yeah,
features.
just the brainstorming of, and then that was when I was just gathering references before I was trying to put stuff together.
Cool. All right, looks good. Looks good to get started with the sculpting. So that's awesome. All right, so Heaven, how's it going?
Good.
All right. This takes place in 76 years or in 56 years, I guess. Is that right? Or
Kind of.
all right, very cool. And then we have the dog parrot puppy. Love it. Yeah, it's cute. I guess we just have to make sure that it's puppy-like, but not too cartoony, I guess, right? So it's going to be there's that level of realism still. And we're going to have to figure out how much volume is going to be lost once you shave him off. Like if you get rid of all that fur and whatnot.
Yeah.
I
drew on oh, sorry.
I was just going to say there's probably references online of, you know, haircuts gone wrong for dogs. I'm sure there's a 2-hour YouTube video on that. So, you know, but sorry, you were saying?
I like the last page is like no, not last page, second last one is like the final design kind of thing. I remove something.
The legs.
I feel like
remove the extra legs.
Yeah, and make the wings a lot smaller.
Oh, that's too bad. I did like these big wings.
What? Because I sent this to Mui, and if you remember, she was doing concept art before kind of CA program, and she says like all the elements like kind of too much, like make it really messy, and she doesn't really know like what's the point, like the main point of it. So I just reduce something and make it like more simple,
right?
That kind of stuff. Yeah.
I do like the wings because they look functional. Like they could actually lift him off the ground for short periods of time, like a chicken can fly, you know. Whereas these guys, they don't look functional at all. Like he wouldn't. It's almost like it reminds me of something like this. Here, let's just go.
Sleepy Joe.
Sleazy versus Sleepy versus howling for, I don't know, let's go pugs or puppies. Yeah, let's go puppies. It's starting to look a little bit like, oh yeah, there we go. Where's the one I want though? I'll just scrub through the timeline, and I saw one in the picture that, yeah, this one. It's kind of looking a little bit like this, where they're just kind of slapped on his back, but they don't look necessarily. Oh, these are just stills, but they don't necessarily look functional to a certain degree. Does that make sense? Whereas the bigger ones, they definitely look functional. Like a griffin's wings are more functional, I guess, if you look at that, you know, more traditional Camaro type of thing. But
okay,
these guys are. Oh, look, it's Princess Leia cat. Sorry. Any other? Okay, enough of that. Okay, so let me just close that. So yeah, definitely think about expanding the size. Now, you know, it's probably a good idea to get rid of those extra legs. I thought it was a cool design choice, but you know, it is a lot of extra work to, well, marginally, you're scripting everything. So, you know, having that extra set of legs wouldn't actually be as much work as you probably think, but then the weight painting and all that stuff, and then working out the muscles for the wings, just to see how that would all connect in through here. It does get a little bit overly complicated once you have that extra set of legs in there, for sure. So yeah, that's probably a good choice, losing that, but yeah, I would consider making them bigger. Otherwise, they feel like something I would, you know, like you'd eat on wing night or something, like, you know, like those little tiny little wings that that they missed a couple feathers on when they were before they served them. I don't know if you. Yeah. Cool, but I really think it's a fun concept. Provided that we make sure that it does feel less cartoony and more realistic. Puppies by nature do have more cartoony proportions. Cartoony proportions are from infants, to give them that appeal. That's where everything developed initially to begin with the big heads and the big eyes and whatnot. But, bringing it to more realistic puppy and less cartoony puppy, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, I can't really draw like realistic stuff, so I would make it realistic. Yeah.
Cool. I think it's a great idea though, but definitely when we get into the wings, I consider, well, the main wing structure, you're going to want that as part of the body, and then obviously feathers and stuff would be separate. Probably geometry. You're just going to have to count. When you count actually how many feathers are like flight feathers versus like the secondary and tertiary feathers, there's not really a lot of feathers there. Then you get like the smaller fluffy feathers and whatnot. So hand placing those feathers isn't something that would actually, it seems like crazy talk when I say it, but it wouldn't actually take that much time to do that, provided you had, some good geometry and textures on them and whatnot. But maybe Dennis will also go through the feather system with you guys before then as well. But cool. All right. Looks neat.
Thanks.
Near.
Uh,
All right.
Hey,
how's it going? So this is cool. So I remember last week, it was more of this guy, right?
yeah.
And then, okay, this is cool. So you've gone a little bit more, less grumpy cat and a little bit more kind of realistic proportions. Is that right? Whoa, look at this. That's quite different.
Yeah,
That's
it's
cool.
become the hairless cat.
That's very cool. It's almost like a Siamese cat in coloring and whatnot.
Oh, I have some trouble with the anatomy.
Right. I mean, it looks, just from first glance, it looks pretty good what you have here.
Yeah, and I should have add more bones on the frill.
Over here?
No, on the ears. It should have more bones to
right,
to open the frill. Yeah.
Right, because there's the frill, right, like a lizard.
It could be bristle, like.
Right. In a real lizard like those, is it bone or is it like a cartilage type of thing?
I just know it has bones.
Right. It'd be worthwhile looking at like a real frilly lizard. I mean, if it is going to open and close, we might want to consider actually having individual pieces of geometry and then having individual geometry between each section almost.
Individual geometry. Okay.
Yeah, but talk to Dennis because he has an approach for doing those types of things just to get proper collapsing. See what he suggests in terms of for rigging purposes.
Okay.
But I do feel that typically what I would do is that you would have your outer structure and then you would just have like a four-sided, like just one quad between them. That would perfectly shrink and expand because there's only the 4 points. So 2 would be on the one side and 2 would be on the other side. And then what you can do is you can wrap your higher res membrane in there. So there's a bunch of different things to do, but see what Dennis suggests rigging wise to see how we would approach that.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
Yeah, but that's looking really, really cool. Yeah. Yeah, you know what? It is so integrated into the head, though. It might actually have to be more continuous, but we'll experiment with that. We'll start it off separate anyway. It's easy to combine and blend everything together.
All right.
Cool. He's tiny.
Yeah. I want to make it more like a pet.
Cool. So he's gonna sit on somebody's shoulder.
And I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit big to sit on shoulder.
Right. You could carry him around in like a giant duffel bag or something.
Oh That's cool.
His little head popping out like a chihuahua.
What, Chihuahua?
Yeah, have you seen that in Beverly Hills? They carry their little dogs and purses and stuff. And
Oh, I know. I just searched that.
yeah, cool. All right, looks good though. Nice.
Just a quick question: are these PDFs or Word documents?
These are PDFs.
Oh,
okay, okay.
PDFs.
I got that right then. Mine just looked a little pixelated when I turned it into a PDF, but whatever.
I'll get the idea. The cool thing with Sync Sketch and the PDFs is that I can just kind of scroll through the pages. It just becomes part of the timeline. So if I do end up making notes, it just becomes part of that. Let me get rid of that now. Part of the timeline there. But so far so good. Looking neat.
I think you missed Zhang Len and Kumi after Heaven.
Oh, I did. Okay, how did that happen?
Or TN.
Let me go in here. All right, so we have a pandagle. A pandagle? It's a combination of a panda and eagle. Cool. That's neat. So it's kind of looking like a panda with a. Okay, so he has more of the eagle's front arms, I guess, like the talons, and then the more of that eagle beak. So that's kind of cool. I think we definitely want to play up the talon bit. Maybe it can go up into the arms a little bit more, a bit more of that kind of reptilian bird leg. If you were to look at, they look like dinosaur legs, really, when you look at like an eagle. Like, let's look at a harpy eagle leg. I'll never find it. So it'd be cool if, they almost look like hands, like something you see in a horror movie a little bit. But, going up into maybe the harpy eagle isn't the best one because their feathers go all the way down to the. Okay, here we go. Something a little bit more talon going up into before the fur starts picking up. So they do feel a little bit more, less like paws, less like panda paws. Otherwise, what could happen is it might just feel like a panda with a beak slapped on him. So I think we do want a little bit more of that integration between the two.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, and then it'd be awesome getting that kind of reptile kind of texture that birds have, being descendants of the dinosaur and whatnot, I guess. So, but with still ripples, there's still wrinkles and folds and stuff. So it is a skin, but these are crazy, huh? Like how big those nails are. They're powerful too. They could actually crush a human skull, which is crazy. Yeah. All right, let's go back. Cool. Yeah, I mean, it's there. It's there. I mean, it would be cool maybe to indicate a little bit more of the musculature coming off the ribs, like the serratus muscles and whatnot. But it's there. It's not an anatomy class, so these are things that you're going to be going over with Brian and whatnot. So it's good that you're thinking about that. So that's great.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. And all right, so let's see. We looked at. Nope. Let's see. Right. So Arthur, we've got some cool initial concepts. So these are awesome. And this guy is looking pretty cool. It's kind of like a seahorse, right?
Yeah.
Keelin is an amphibian. Okay, very cool. So that's what the name is. The Keelin.
Keelin is like Chinese Chinese monster, like, but I just change it by my self-style, and yeah.
Cool.
So just my name is Zhang Lin. The last name Lin is Qilin Lin.
I did not know that. That's cool. It looks great. Cool colors. It definitely feels like it's from the sea, which is awesome. I was almost thinking, looking at the horns the other day, that it could almost have like a coral, maybe a little bit of a coral patterning to it, somewhat. That would be kind of interesting, or a kind of an underlying coral patterning to it, which could be kind of cool. But,
on patterning.
Yeah, like coral reefs. If we were to let me look at bleached, which is a horrible thing that's happening to the coral reefs, but they're slowly dying. But is that bleach with the 2 E's, or is there an A? Bleached coral. Let's see if we can find a close-up of where you have your main structure, but there's like these little pockets, and see if we can find like little knobbly bits and stuff like that. So it feels like it's more from underwater.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be as pronounced as that. That might be a little bit weird, but having it as part of it, maybe the design element, maybe it could be on a leading edge that wraps around or something like that, or more of a designy thing. But
okay, I want his horror has light, like when he in under the sea, the horror can catch fish.
Oh, gotcha! Like those deep sea creatures that have like the lantern.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
No. It's like it will have lighting.
Right.
Light.
So the horns would emit light that would attract fish that it would then eat.
Yeah, attract fish.
Right. Cool. I like it. Sounds cool. Good idea. Yeah, musculature looks really good. Nicely thought out. And cool. Yeah, so we got some reference. It's big. That's cool. Oh, and you start sculpting. This is great.
Thank you.
Very cool. Yeah, so we are going to probably want to separate out those horns for sure. But yeah, this is a good start. All right, and we'll look at that in more detail in a second, the sculpts and whatnot. So, where am I? Kumi, there you are.
Yeah.
Hey, how's it going?
A little bit sleepy.
Me too. I'm a bit sleepy too. I should have made more coffee. Instead, I foolishly just boiled some water. Now I'm getting tired again. So, all right. So we got the river otter. Oh, good combo. Otters are good. Otter, and we've got a cat and the penguin.
I thought about how to put what type of should I put what type of food. So yeah. Cool.
It works. I think that works well. I did see yours this morning, and I was really liking these patterns that you're coming up with. I think these are great. Like
calico.
Yeah, like the calico. Is that right? Or
maybe three colored cat.
Yeah, like one of these definitely. I think these look great. I would probably move away from the more penguin colors. I think going into the cat colors with everything else really kind of it really blends it all together. It really unifies everything for me anyway. What do you guys think?
Actually, tuxedo type cat just looks like penguin, but I think when I draw these guys, I saw that calico type penguin is a little bit interesting for me.
It is, yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, I've never seen anything like that before, so that's cool. I think that's great. It's great thinking, because yeah, here, it's still, maybe it's too penguin-y. There are cats that are these colors, but this, has a penguin feel still, but it also is just integrated more with the cat aspect, I think, going with the cat pattern. Either of these, but yeah, I think I'm liking this guy, but whatever one you prefer. I think it's a great exploration of patterns and colors, though. It's a great way to unify the design. And cool, nice. So you thought that through. That's looking very good.
Thank you.
Very cool, cute.
Yes.
And disturbing. This guy's so
Yeah.
when you are modeling your wings, this is a good idea though to bring them away from the body like that. So just make sure that you are going. It doesn't have to be a T pose, but you know that A pose at least, just so there's separation. It'll make it easier to rig and paint weights and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So that's very good. Let's keep
Thank
going.
you.
Thank you. You Faye.
Yeah.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi.
Hey. So we have a tree alligator.
Yeah. Yeah.
Croc leopard. A croc.
I know. I just randomly picked names.
That's cool. It reminds me of this animal that is extinct, but I don't think it became extinct until after humans had settled Australia. But there was a thing called a drop bear, which I had never heard of before. But it's a bear that lived in the trees that would, I guess, drop on people and eat them. I don't know. It sounds horrible, but it kind of reminds me of that. You know, he's just kind of lounging around, sees something, then maybe he would just drop down on them, and which is terrifying. All right, so let's see.
Yeah.
They kill you by flattening you.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's like being two sacks of potatoes dropping on your head from 50 feet up or whatever. So
the belly flop method.
Cool. Oh yeah, nice thought of the musculature. This is great. So definitely when we get into the sculpting, you know, giving hints of where the highs and lows are, that's good reference. So good stuff. And neat patterning. Cool. So we got the sculpt going. So yeah, I think because I saw this yesterday. So yeah, things like the teeth and the scales, we definitely want those as separate.
Yeah, I separated.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Good stuff.
It's different in different layers.
Cool. Are each one its own piece of geometry at the moment, or?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
The teeth and the sparks.
Very cool. Nice. Cool. There are a few things we're going to want to look at structurally as we get into the sculpt, but I think it's definitely a great start. Okay, nicely done.
Thank you.
All right, Jem. So we got this little dude leading more of a beast of burden around.
Yeah, pretty much. I had like it's a mix between like a camel and an anteater.
Nice.
Yeah. I tried faking the musculature, and I didn't do well on the skeleton, but I was looking at like anteater and camel skeleton reference, and I like tried doing.
Oh,
You're drifting off there, buddy.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
And he's gone. Maybe the battery died.
So,
I mean, right at that moment as well.
Hey, Jem, if you can hear me, just mention it in the chat window there, and I'll just make some comments. We'll circle back. Oh, okay, cool. Hey, okay, awesome. Cool. It's an awesome combo. Let's see, skeletally, that's looking pretty cool. I mean, thinking things through, that's great. It'd be cool to get a little bit more of those, a little bit more detail in through the forearm and lower legs. Just it does offer. There are these anchors that the muscles connect into, particularly around here. Oh wait, I'm not in pen mode. Sorry, I'm using a mouse, so it's going to be horrible. But around here, and I can see a little bit of that knobbly bit there. That again, we get these act as an anchor point for some of these muscle groups. But cool, yeah, it's looking good. A neat reference. All right, let me just go here. Yeah, you can see that here, right, where they stick out just a bit more. So when we're, but that's interesting. An anteater is more like a human leg, but that's this part right here. whereas the foot actually still has a little bit of that knobbly bit, right, at the heel. And again, it's the same. Yeah, it's not letting go. There we go. It's the same thing, right? So this on a horse or cat, you know, this is the heel. So it's just kind of elongated where they're walking on their tippy toes essentially. So that's cool. Oh, let's see. There's some comments. No, it's not a bad job, but you know, it's just something to think about. Okay, let's see. Yeah, I didn't know they walked on their knuckles either. It's almost like a gorilla, I guess, to a certain degree, walking on the knuckly parts. That's interesting. Cool. All right, and then some anteater reference. Cool patterns, though. They're neat looking things. All right, very cool. Let's keep going. And I guess there's going to be fur and stuff. Yeah, the anteater pattern would be awesome, especially because the form is, it does feel more camel-like, especially with the height and everything. So having that anteater patterning, I think, is a good way to bridge the two. Maybe the patterning could be of the anteater, but maybe the colors could be swung a little bit more to that camel kind of sandy brownish color, perhaps, especially if the environment's more desert-like, because it'd be more of a camouflage thing, I guess. But neat. All right, good job, Fishwoman. All right, let's check this out. So we've got some reference. We got Princess Leia frog over here, which I love. That's awesome. The snails as oh, what did I do? I've hit play by accident. Snails like the buns. That's awesome. Do you think that was staged, or do you think that just naturally happened?
I think it's the stage, maybe.
Probably.
I saw different animal naturally happen something like this for them. Yeah. For frog, I never seen something like this.
Yeah, those snails just really like hanging out with that guy, I guess. So
yeah.
All right, these are cool. This is really creepy, though. Is that real?
Yeah, it's like the taxidermy of the fish. What they call it. Yeah.
Cool. Oh yeah.
Looks like an alien.
It does, yeah, with the eyes. Look where the nose is, I guess. Is that a nose, or what would that be? The nose, maybe. There's the mouth.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It looks like it has large shoulder pads. I don't know if you can hear me now, by the way.
Oh, I do. Yes.
Yay!
Yeah, he's from the '80s with the large shoulder pads. That's right. Mouse drawing. It's a mouse drawing. There we go. There he's got. Or I Come in Peace, where he's like the Vulcan. I should move over to the Cintiq. This would be so much easier. Anyhow, I'm doing the Spock sign. It's not going to work. Okay, never mind. Stupid mouse. All right. Cool. All right, cool reference. Cool reference. I'm loving. Oh, it's like a kingfisher or something. That's cool. All right, so the environment. This is good. Good thinking. All right, and we have our creature. So this looks. Yeah, this is looking really good. Now, I was wondering skeletally, there we go, because there are the arms there, and I'm almost wondering if there should be some kind of clavicle going in just for a collarbone, just to give the range of motion, just because there are the human-like arms, that I would imagine that it would need a little bit more of that human structure in through the upper chest.
I created it's just the shape of the arm, the shape of the feet, and it's part of the body. It's covered by the layer. She couldn't move it at all. But then suggested to take the hands off, maybe from elbow to the wrist, to do some of this stuff and make it feel free to do some things and make it like the pocket, and she can hide the hands and she can take out the hands as well. But when I created, I thought I don't need the hands at all.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, I mean that could be interesting. So, would it be more like a, shrimp, or like a where there's like some kind of grasping thing, or is it going to be more more nothing, where it's just more like a fin almost that goes over the chest area, or?
I thought about the thing nothing's going around the chest, but we can see only the shape of the hands, only the shape of the face.
Right, gotcha. So it's more of a is there more like we're just kind of projecting that they're more like hands because it has that human-esque feel, but okay, I got it. Nice, I like that. That's cool. And then this is the other side.
Yeah, it's the back. Yeah.
Cool. And then you're thinking maybe just reducing it down to the one tail bit.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Nice colors.
Thank you.
Cool. All right. Looks cool. Let's do it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. All right. What do we got here? Chen, how's it going?
Well,
good. Are you feeling better today? Or you've been getting a bit more rest, or?
Yes. It's before the midnight. I'm okay.
Awesome. Yeah, same here. Well, for me, it's 11 now. I can't even stay up past 11 these days, but cool. So what do we have here? We have some kind of canine with giant ears.
Yes, the elephant dog.
Elephant dog. There's a movie in there.
Yeah, I don't know.
We can call him John. Maybe John Merrick. Anybody? No, Elephant Man. Never mind. Because
that's not the paw. That's the hoof.
Right. I see now. Cool. Okay. So there's more of that elephant. In terms of skin, would it be more like an elephant kind of skin too for this, or?
I haven't decided.
Right. So
yeah.
That's something that you're definitely going to want to think about in terms of how you're going to approach the
maybe it's a short fur for the dog.
Right. Or it could be more like baby elephants are pretty furry. Could maybe be more sparsely. It'd be kind of gross maybe, but have you guys seen, let me see, baby elephant? Hair. There we go. They're kind of cute. They have hair. It looks like a little mammoth almost. Let me see. But it's not like super thick hair, like a dog. I mean, that could be kind of. Is it gonna let me go? Okay, that's kind of. Yeah, there's so kind of cute. I mean, in terms of structure, I mean, I guess you're gonna have a little bit more of that elephant kind of padding for the feet. So I guess you'd have more of that elephant skin type of detailing around at least the thicker kind of toe structure.
I think the dog's fur is more nice or cute.
It's cute, yeah, definitely. I wonder if a combination of the two would work. Why I'm suggesting it is that structurally, it does feel really much. It feels a lot like a dog, and I didn't really notice the feet until you had mentioned elephant dog, and I did pick that up. I think color and the hair though will help really combine the two. So if it was all hair, I don't know if people would notice the elephant leg so much. Which
see that.
Yeah, I think you're gonna have to think. You'll have to think about a combination where maybe there's longer fur or hair on top, and maybe that ends up becoming it kind of becomes shorter and shorter as it goes down towards the legs, just so you really get a sense that it's that elephant elephant structure. Now you can do some neat things with color to kind of blend the two together, but yeah, you're going to want to play with how you're going to approach that. I could see a combination of hair and then going into rougher, thicker skin for the legs. And then maybe the tail too could be a little bit more of that elephant tail as opposed to a dog tail, where the elephant tails are they're longer, but they usually have some kind of bit of a tuft at the end and whatnot. And sorry, silly elephant. All right, but you can see there's like a tuft of fur at the end, but they're a little bit less. It's like a hairless dog tail. Like a dog's tail would probably look very similar. Probably less wrinkles though, less meat on the bones perhaps, but that's gross. All right, let's see. Cool. All right, some stuff to think about. It's an interesting concept though. And then the teeth. I guess the dog's teeth. Is he going to have tusks, or is it going to be more? Because it'd be kind of interesting to play up the tusk element of this. Maybe where the canines are, maybe they could be more tusk-like, or maybe I don't know. Are the tusks coming out of the molars? I'm not sure really how that structure works necessarily, but I'd consider playing that aspect up a bit, like how the tusks are of the elephant. So let's see. I mean, obviously, maybe not necessarily that large, but like a smaller scale version of the tusk. Like like there's a boar tusk, where they come out where the canines are, and they kind of circle around a little bit. These ones are gross. These tusks actually end up killing the creature because they grow into its brain. Sorry, sorry for that, but I only found out because they have these guys at the zoo in Toronto, and this is more of a boar. But it'd be kind of neat to play with that kind of tusk idea with maybe some of the teeth structure. Again, just tying things in a little bit more between the elephant, and the and one other thing just with the elephant is that they do have a larger cranial area for their brain, right? They have a bigger brain, a big giant brain in there. It'd be neat to maybe play a little bit without losing appeal, because it could look kind of creepy, like a giant alien dog, but to play with that structure of how the eyes are set, because an elephant, they have the big brain and their eyes are actually quite far set, which it's like an octopus. You always equate that with intelligence to a certain degree, right? Whereas a dog, their eyes are quite close set. But it'd be neat to somehow play around with those shapes a bit as well. A couple things to think about.
Thank you.
Cool, thanks. It's an interesting combination, though. I haven't seen that before. All right. So let's Pong. How's it going?
Yeah,
Shark dog. Shark dog.
Yes, shark dog.
All right. He looks vicious. But he looks so cute.
Yeah.
That's cool. Wow. I guess you'd want him guarding your backyard, or you wouldn't want to meet him in a. Is it a pit bull?
Oh, guarding a swimming pool.
Oh, a swimming pool. Yeah, there you go. From raccoons, maybe. I don't know.
He's scared shitless.
He's big. Cool. It's a neat combination. So I think we're gonna have to think about here. I'm just gonna move over to. I can't do any more mouse drawings today, so let me just shift over the screen sharing. Just bear with me for 1 second there we go. Oh, where did it go? Technology. All right, so let me move this over here and switch over to my Cintiq. Cool. This area. So I do like the very short neck thing that you have going. Neck thing you have going on. I think that's kind of interesting. But just making sure that there's enough structure, like in terms of muscle and structure, because right now that mouth is going right into the shoulder musculature, so it almost feels like it would be non-functional. What you might consider doing is just bringing his head forward just a little bit more, and that's going to give you a little bit more room to have you know the shoulder. What did I do? Did I just erase everything? Stupid thing. I think so. I'll do it again. What's going on? Newer sketches. Here, I know what's happening. Remind me when I'm demoing just to click on start presenting. Otherwise, I think when you guys are looking at stuff, it messes that up a bit. So you know, bring this a little bit more forward. And that'll give us a little bit more room between the legs and where the neck is, just so that we can have that distance will just make it feel a little bit more plausible in terms of being able to move that area around. And I think having it too close, it doesn't feel natural.
Okay.
But I think everything else is kind of cool. I mean, this is the gills. Yeah, how's that going to work with? Because there is going to be a bit of a scapula there, because we do have kind of more of the legs. And then the gills are typically connected in through the mouth area, because you can actually see right into the mouth of a shark through its gills. They're quite close there. You might consider, yeah, if we were to move this forward even a little bit more, that would give us a little bit more room to at least put 2 or 3 gills there, just so that, because you are going to probably want to have that hole seeing inside the mouth.
Yeah.
And that would make sense. Cool. And everything else is
makes sense.
Yeah, nice. I like it.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, so let's how are we doing for time? Oh, okay. Let's see here. Right, this guy's cute. So it's a kind of a combination of a gecko and a kangaroo.
Yep.
Awesome. I want one.
I want one too.
That's awesome. Now, in terms of tails, do they actually have any kind of like a skeletal structure in there, or is it just cartilage?
No, I want cotton, because sometimes if the gecko feels nervous or feel dangerous, they will cut their tails and just go wrong, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I want to keep this.
I guess they regenerate too, right? They grow back.
I'm not sure, actually.
Yeah, they do grow back.
Which is creepy. Creepy cool.
Yeah, a little bit.
Cool.
Well,
yeah, it's neat.
Yeah, because I just think about if well, actually, I think I can add the tails. Well, I have no idea right now. Sorry.
Right. I think it's cool. I think it's looking good. Structurally, it's a great start. I think the head needs to be just a little bit bigger if I'm looking at your design, because it does feel just a little bit larger, and the tail definitely feels a little bit thicker as well. Where this is, it definitely looks like a tail, and it does have that gecko feel, which is fine. But if you did want to go closer to your design, it definitely felt, that could be just slightly a little bit thicker there.
Yeah.
So it has a bit more of that gecko-y-ness to it. Cool. Cool. It's a great start. And then we'll separate out toes and fingers and stuff like that.
Yep.
Nice. Yeah. So you're off to a really good start with that.
Thank you.
Looks good. All right. Let's see. We got 3 more, and then we'll take a break. All right. So we had shark dog, and now we have a manta ray dog. Which is
yeah, similar.
which is
Similar
cool.
idea.
Yeah, no, it's cool. You guys, it can combine them into a film. You can have like an underwater underwater community. There's like the fish woman walking her shark dog, and and there's like the manta dog is comes out of nowhere and causes some problems. There you go. There's a story idea right there.
Sounds like a good idea.
Cool. It's cute. I like it. We've got, yeah, it's neat. Yeah, cool. Let's keep going with that. I think that's like an interesting concept.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that was easy. All right, very cool. Yeah.
That was really quick.
Too quick, but okay. Let me see. Camaro concept. Oh, look at all this stuff. That's neat.
Hey,
Hey, how's it going?
good.
All right. Cool concepts. And then we have our mosquito, bumblebee, scorpion, fish design, which is pretty cool. He's tiny.
Yeah, it's tiny.
Awesome. Very cool. Oh, good. Yeah, good. So, yeah, those connecting bits are going to be important. So I'm glad you spent some time to investigate how all that stuff works. So that's great.
Yeah, because the insects only have the out skeleton, so I draw the legs, how them content to the body.
Right, and yeah, those details will become very important. So that's awesome. Very cool. Good. Looks good. All right, that was easy too. keep going. So I would consider modeling things separately though for the leg. So each leg could be its own bit. If it's anything like a lobster leg, which I guess they would be kind of like that when you think about it, where a lobster is like a giant insect. Lobster, or let's go king crab. King crab eggs. Makes me hungry. Sorry.
Me too.
You can
yeah.
go to Captain's Boil and eat some lobster.
Captain's Boil. I've been there.
Yeah, I love the food.
No, the pictures.
Yeah, that's right. I want a live one. I don't want a cooked one. Here, let me see. King crab. King crab. Live. All right, there we go. So you know they are separated, right? It's the exoskeleton where everything's separated, but there are the connector bits that unify it as one piece. If I can find like something where I can zoom in on it, I'll never find what I'm looking for. But you know, so you can think about doing each leg as its individual element. You know, I guess arguably they could connect in. I would start by doing them separate because two of the legs are very similar in terms of how they're, especially these front two legs, they're very similarly structured, even this leg. So you could actually build one, you know, relatively detailed, and then go through and duplicate it and then change the proportions for the others. So you're not having to start from scratch for each one.
Okay, no problem. Actually, I already separate each of them.
Oh, good.
My rough sketch.
Awesome. Yeah, that's going to make life so much easier by doing that.
Yeah. And question about when I finish this model, I need to combine them together or just keep it separate, and it's easier for rigging. I don't know, keep it together or separate.
I would keep it separate. I would consider keeping things separate. Like the wings would definitely be separate.
Okay.
Yeah, you could definitely consider that because insects, you know, they are distinctly, they have their individual components, so you could get away with having them separate. You're right, it would be a lot easier to rig that way.
Okay, and even every segment of the leg should be separate.
Maybe. I mean, it would be easier to rig if they were separate, but like I was mentioning with the crab legs,
Yes.
there are those little connecting bits that hold it all together. So you might want to have that sculpted in as a continuation. So
Okay,
like an
gotcha.
entire leg might be one piece.
Okay, thanks.
But it's you know, how would I do it? I don't know. I'd be on the fence. I would consider both options. It would be a lot easier though if they were all separated out. But in terms of getting the detail and making it look really realistic, you know, having it maybe as one piece, you can really kind of play with how they're connected a little bit more, perhaps.
Okay.
Cool. It's neat. I like it.
Actually, I have more pages.
Oh, was there? I missed it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. Very cool. So we got nice. Oh, this is awesome. In colors. Okay. Which direction are you leaning for the colors?
I prefer the pink one.
Which is the original one, right? This one?
Yeah, yeah.
It's good. Yeah, that yellow purple combination is pretty cool. Yeah, because some of the other ones are feeling a little bit more masculine, and if it's you know, like a bee or, you know, hummingbird type of thing, where it's around flowers, you know, the brighter colors would probably allow it to blend in a little bit better to its environment.
Yeah. It's an environment.
Right. So I think that, yeah, that's working. Some reference. So this is all good. Yeah, this is great. And then it's going to have some hairs like a bee, I guess, as well. And
Yeah, on her eyes.
very cool. Environment. And the sculpt. Wow, you're done. Very cool. For the tail, I guess it's mostly going to always be kind of curled up like that, or does it ever go straight when she's flying?
Okay. So.
Oh, yeah.
So
when you're animating it, eventually when you start animating the creature, does the tail ever straighten out, or is it always going to be kind of curled up there in this kind of swirl?
Actually, not sure, but I think when it's curled, it looks more better, looks more cool. So I have no idea. Cute. Yeah, more cute. Thanks, Nia.
Love it.
It does, yeah. No, design-wise, it definitely looks good. You know, if it's going to be like that most of the time, I think that's great. You might want to double check with Dennis in terms of rigging if it should be a little bit straighter. But you know, if she's going to be flying around and that's kind of the shape it usually is in, like 90% of the time, then I think that's okay.
Okay, so maybe I can change it to straight line, not so curl. So maybe better for rigging.
Maybe. Although, you know, double check with Dennis first.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
And sorry, one more question about the petal on the mosquito's head. I don't know which way is better to sculpt the petal. Just use the mask and pull it out from the head geometry, or just do one petal and transfer the ZBrush sculptures to a low resolution card and combine it. Use Maya, combine the body and the petal card.
I'd keep it separate.
Okay.
I would just keep it separate the entire time. And then you do have some design elements here that could overlap where the petals connect. So that could be kind of a way to hide how they're connected in.
Okay. So
but
maybe
it'd be easier for rigging, and because you're probably going to want them to have a little bit of overlapping animation when she's moving around. So yeah, having them separate would just make your life so much easier for that.
Okay, no problem. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, and yeah, this is awesome. I love the details and everything. I think that looks great. Cool, nicely done.
Thank you.
All right, and then lastly, before we take a break, David.
Hi there. Yeah, this is the second page.
Okay, let me go back to the.
We've got a bit of an overlay there. So yeah, I've been working on the skeleton and the musculature.
Yep.
I've got a layout for its environment and its kind of lifestyle, if you will, size comparison. Sweetie Daddy's talking. Sorry, I've got a 4-year-old here.
For sure. This is awesome. I love the details and everything on the paws. I think that's looking really cool.
Thank you, thank you. Is there anything that's missing with regards to this submission? Would you like to see more colors or more photos from the internet, that kind of thing?
You know, reference material. I think you had some other reference material with the rough. It would be nice to have that all part of the package.
Right, right.
But yeah, no, I think in color would be nice, just in terms of the patterning you're thinking about.
Well, he's pitch black. That's the thing, and he's going to have white, yellow glowing eyes.
Right, that's going to be awesome. Right,
so it's a bit of a hell dog, but it's actually, you know, nothing so vicious.
Right. I mean, ideally, you know, it would be cool to have like at least indication. So, you know, black, but you could just go over and highlight, you know, just some of the high and low points just by just with a whiter, like a lighter color brush, perhaps. But
sure. So you'd like to see more of what the creature would look like with its fur on, and also you'd like to see the muscles with some red. I've seen a lot of red in people's submissions.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, it would be cool to indicate that's awesome if you could. Sure, that'd be great.
Well, I already submitted to Slate this morning because I was looking at the deadline that was strictly listed on Slate. So am I able to submit again? And if so, how do I go ahead with that?
Yeah, so if you have time today at some point to do that, I'll just change the due date or the assignment so it'll be, you know, maybe tonight or tomorrow. How much time would you need to throw some color on that?
I probably need to tomorrow, you know, just with all of the other submissions and work I have to do today.
Right. So I'll extend it for everybody tomorrow at say 9 p.m.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's great.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, just because there are some criteria with color and stuff, so you know, just so that all the boxes are checked, I think that would be good.
Yeah. I didn't see anything like that on Slate, so that's why I wanted to make sure I made a point of just querying it with you.
Right, my bad. Yeah, let me check that out too, because I just want to make sure, because we did go through the rubrics for the animation on Monday, but let's see if I can find that stuff in here.
I was following Slate as well, and I just felt so like, uh-oh. When I saw everyone else's work, I was like, oh no, everyone's so awesome.
Right. If you guys want to resubmit, if you want to make any adjustments based off of anything I had said, yeah, I mean, feel free. You have until tomorrow at 9 to make any adjustments, provided, you know, you still have time to do all the other million things you have to do every day.
And to Slate, that would also be a PDF as well?
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Okay. But so far, it's looking pretty good in terms of detail. I've got the muscles laid out and the skeleton laid out.
Yeah, no, I think it looks great. It looks great. Yeah, just slap some color on it and you're done. Pretty much.
Wonderful. Yeah. That's great to hear. Thank you, Christian.
Yeah, thanks. So if we're to go through the criteria, I don't know why they're not showing up because they are in here. Maybe some of the. Oh, sorry. Let me change my monitor. There we go. Sorry, I'm in Slate. So yeah, so for the criteria for this, which it looks like most of you guys have done, paragraph description, creature anatomy, skeleton and muscle placement. So yeah, you know, checking the boxes. Functional, which is important, right? Is he actually able to move and do what he needs to do? So I made a few comments with some of these, but generally I think you guys are doing a really good job. And originality, that's a big yes for everybody. These are all very unique looking creatures. So, you know, it's not like a huge list of things, but and for the most part, I think, you know, everybody is, you know, doing really well in all of those sections. So just the color, I guess it doesn't really say anything about color, does it? I guess you're good with the color, but if you don't have time, you know, technically there's no criteria there. My bad. I should next year though. Next year that's going to be there if I do sculpting again. So yes.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. But it would help you. You know, it is black, sure, I guess. So it makes it easier. But definitely, the muscle, maybe indicate the muscle colors at least at the minimum.
Sure thing. All right. I'll make that a priority. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys. All right. Let's take a break. Let's say 15 minutes. So 22. The hour. We'll be back, and we'll start going back into ZBrush for the last hour and a half or so, hour and 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. So I'm going to keep the recording going, just like I do every time, but I'm just going to turn off my camera and microphone just so I can walk away, and I'm going to make some coffee, I think. So, all right. See you guys.
For now.
See you.
Okay. See ya.
See you.
Yep.
I'm back. All right. You guys.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good.
Awesome. I also had a chance to have a cookie. I noticed they were up there, so hopefully people don't notice them going missing. But I have a weakness for for sweets sometimes, especially chocolate chip cookies.
Is that like a homemade cookie, or you buy it from somewhere else?
Yeah, we bought them from a local bakery down in the beach. We were down there on the weekend, and my wife picks them up. So they're like homemade, but we didn't make them ourselves though.
Okay, got it. Sounds good though.
Oh, they're super good. I almost want to go up for more, but one a day. I can only do maybe one a day.
Like what flavor is it?
It's kind of like an oatmeal, but chocolate chip. It's like a kind of a soft chocolate chip cookie.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty tasty.
Yeah, sounds pretty good.
Are you talking about coffee?
No, chocolate chip cookies.
Ah, okay. Never mind. I'm grinding coffee now.
That's cool. Yeah, I ground my beans this morning, and my wife finds it kind of gross, but I just add water in the morning once we've gone through the batch, and instead of regrinding. But we've been kind of rationing our coffee beans just in case there's ever a shortage. So I always like so every day we'll have fresh coffee, but then I end up having like watered down a version of that for my second cup during class time. But it's kind of gross, but
okay. Just get a caffeine.
That's cool. But that's great that you grind your own beans. I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah. And it's cheaper.
For sure.
And have no sugars.
Depends on the beans, though. Before we had kids, we used to live in a condo downtown, and we'd go to the St. Lawrence Market all the time. We were pretty close to there, and there's this place that sells coffee beans, and I'm sure it's still there. I hope it's still there. There was this brand. What was it called? I want to say Blue Mountain, but I don't know. But it was expensive. It was like I don't want to say $50 a pound, but it was something like that. And, so
still there, Chris. It's still
What?
there. I've been there last week, and it's still there.
Oh, that's awesome. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Because you never know with all the closures and everything that's going on. But yeah, some really good coffee beans to choose from there. Or you can just buy a cup of coffee there too.
Oh yeah, I know that one.
Yeah.
It's like really good.
Super good.
Really high quality. Yeah.
I really want to go. I really want to try it, but now I can't.
maybe in the not so distant future. It's like.
Okay.
All right. So how are we doing for time? We got 2 minutes. Yep. Hey.
Hi. I think I should. I will leave at 11. If it's okay. I will watch a recording or something.
Okay.
Because I have appointment or something.
For sure. Yeah, that's fine. And were you able to watch the those extra videos I made? They're starting to add up. I think it's like up to 4 hours of extra stuff now. But
is there? What I didn't check that out.
Yeah, they're there on in Teams, and I also uploaded them to the YouTube playlist that I shared with you guys. So the YouTube playlist is probably better to watch it through because you can go double speed if you wanted to, so you can get through it a lot faster. Because I do go through long periods of probably not talking or just mumbling. I don't know if you guys have watched any of them yet, but what I should do is just go take it into Premiere and just fast forward through it all and just record it out that way as like a time lapse. But I do find that there's value and just seeing how long things actually take going through stuff. So, in real time is probably better maybe, but.
Could you share the video, YouTube videos link as well again?
Yeah, sure. Let me just open that up.
Because with Teams, it's very hard to work with the time.
Yeah, so I'll share both links because I've been uploading all of our methodology videos as well. And again, it's probably easier just to watch them and fast forward on YouTube. So let me just go.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Let me see. There was a question that came up about extending the slate deadline, so I'll do that right at the end of class. So don't worry about that. It'll be changed. Let's see here. So let me share while I'm doing this. So, all right. So where's the playlist located? Is it? Oh, here it is. So there's methodology. Yes, this is it. So where do I look for the link? It's somewhere over here, right here, right? Share, and then copy. So this is for the methodology link, and then sculpting. Here it is. Excuse me. And let's just paste that over here as well. It's the sculpting link. So it does take a little bit longer for me to post to YouTube because I do have to download the videos from Stream, and then I have to upload them to YouTube, and then they have to process. So it does take a couple hours to go through that. So they will be available. It just takes a little bit longer for them to be there. Just in case you're wondering, say, for example, where today's video is. Because all right. So as I mentioned, though, there are 2 extra videos there that you should probably watch. There's the Rough Sculpt companion video, which kind of goes through the entire Z-sphere process again that we talked about in class, and just kind of blocking things in, looking at separating out elements as well. So, for example, with the legs and the torso, just so that it's just easier to get the forms without having to worry about all those things getting in the way and then recombining things again. So a couple things you need to think about with that as well. Creating polygroups. Some of these things we'll touch on today as well. Adding in toes, so like creating one toe and duplicating it out for all of the others. So some common workflow elements, and then working on the forms here. I abandoned this approach, which was in the video I created on Friday, which is this guy, Rough Sculpt Extra. And I ended up deleting these just because this would be more of an approach for fins, maybe like gills or whatever on a fish. But for my character, it's more of a cartilagey kind of ridge that goes over the eye and comes off of the nose and goes into the lip. So I didn't think it was as practical. So for this one, I ended up removing them and then just kind of pulled things out directly from those areas and then shaped them that way. So that's kind of where I kind of went with that. So there's and just keeping everything rough too, right? Because this is kind of the rough stage where you're finding the forms and whatnot. So that's part of this video.
What did you find you were primarily using during this entire rough-in stage?
Yeah, I'll go through that today too. For the most part, we're using clay buildup, which I typically change the alpha, and I'll show you guys that in a second because we're going to do a little bit more refining of this as well. And then we'll go through creating some new polygroups, get into the mouth, and then there's a couple of brushes that are useful for duplicating detail without having to redo everything over and over again, like wrinkles and things like that, or for creating spikes. And I'd mentioned the insert mesh brushes and vector displacement brushes and the new extractor brushes, which are pretty awesome.
What makes them so awesome compared to what was a previous iteration? How is it an improvement, I suppose?
For the new extractor brushes?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Let's hold it for when I demonstrate it. It'll be pretty clear once we get into it.
I see. Gotcha. Thanks.
All right. Anyhow, so this is where we're going to pick up. So everything's kind of more or less locked in. Some of the forms need a little bit more finding, particularly around the muscles. Just bringing in volume into these areas. Debating on how much of the musculature through the torso we're actually going to see. Is it going to be more of a stylistic element, or if it's more real, there'd probably be a layer of fat there, so we probably see a lot less of that. So I'm on the fence at the moment for this guy. And And then getting into the mouth. So we're going to section off, talk about polygroups for sectioning things off so that we can work on the different pieces for creating the gums, tongue, and teeth. So let's see how much of that we can get through now. So I'm going to move over to my other screen. Anyhow, again, feel free to watch this and fast forward. Primary brushes, though, clay buildup, clay, dam standard, and the standard brushes. Those are the 4 main brushes I'll use, in addition to a low frequency smooth, trim dynamic, and high. All the ones that I gave you guys in that first day are the main ones you're going to use. The primary ones being the clay buildup and the dam standard. And then there are a lot of brushes there, but you'll find you don't really use too many of them except for the ones I just mentioned. They'll get you 100% of the way there, depending on what you need to do. But yeah. All right, so let's move over to my other screen here. All right. So in terms of fleshing things out, as I mentioned, this is kind of the main form. So everything's kind of blocked in more or less where I would want it to be. The final thing I did in the last video is I just kind of took the inflate brush and started just tightening up some of the gaps. So the inflate does a really good job of bringing things together. So you can kind of see in through here with the musculature and whatnot, just kind of bulges things up in a natural way so that it doesn't feel like it's just been roughed in. It actually does a good job of those sharper creases. It's still keeping it relatively rough. And anyhow, so for the main brushes, as I mentioned, primarily we're going to be using clay buildup. Now the clay buildup, let me reset this brush. If you decide to play with some of these alphas, which is this section here, and basically the alpha controls like the type of, let me just turn this off here. The alpha just basically controls how that brush is being represented. So this brush with the 3 little white areas, the white on an alpha is the height or the highest areas. And anything else is nothing. So you can see with this, it'll give me, if you wanted to do more of a crosshatch thing. The default, though, let's say you're playing around with these alphas and you realize, what, I need to reset this back to the original, and I can't remember what the original was. Now for this, it's something like this, where it's a bit more of a boxy brush. I don't know if that's actually the alpha that's on there. You would just want to go to the brush menu. And at the very bottom of that menu, we've got Reset Current Brush. Probably not a good idea to reset all brushes because you might have made some modifications that you might want to reuse again. So Reset Current Brush is typically the one you'll click on in case you want to go back to that original shape. So I do find this, this brush is pretty good for blocking things in, but there is a textural quality to it that bugs me. And you can see it here. This repeating kind of is a square, right? That just kind of repeats over and over again. So what I'll do is I'll go with a slightly softer brush where I can get kind of something similar, where I can get this kind of layered, almost like a sinew of a muscle, almost the way it layers things. But it just keeps it a little bit softer. So I'll usually use this guy right here, Alpha 40, is it 48? I don't really look at the numbers, sorry, I just go with the pictures, but this guy right here. So it has a little bit of a softer fall off. The edging's a little bit harder still, which gives you kind of that sinewy kind of muscle look still. So it's not super soft, but it gets rid of all that striation that the square gives you, all those little extra little edges, which can be a little bit annoying to get rid of. So this is good. And then the next thing I just wanted to do is start going over the forms and kind of fleshing things out a little bit. It's a good start in terms of what we have here, but things are looking a little bit flat. not necessarily like a line drawing, because you know there's clear definition, but we could definitely play with the forms and bring things out and add a little bit more of a natural inconsistency to the shape. So it's not just a hard plastic shell, which is kind of what it's looking like a little bit. So, and it's similar to how I drew the design in the first place. If we were to look at, yeah, let me just bring this over here. If we were to look at this here, and can I zoom in? Yeah, right here. You know, and I'm sure you guys do this as well in life drawing. Sometimes you'll follow the form, right? You'll kind of go in and it kind of indicates angles and whatnot, and basically it's creating, it's not like a wireframe, but it's kind of creating the form and following how you would imagine the form to be. And we want to do something somewhat similar with our interior shape. So we have kind of like the bounding edges that I've kind of drawn in here with the dam standard to a certain degree. That's dam standard. Some of it's just the clay buildup that's been kind of flattened and moved around a bit. But I want to make sure I'm getting those forms. So what I might do is just go with a slightly larger brush and just start going over the shapes, just kind of fleshing these areas out a little bit. And, you know, getting a little bit of inconsistencies that you would see, you know, naturally in the skin, where you have little fatty bits and fatty tissue and things like that. And then using a very low frequency smooth, just kind of randomly going over this, just to get rid of some of the brush strokiness of it. So right now the smooth is set to 100%. Now, because my poly counter, you can see here, is really high with the Dynamesh, you know, if I go look at it, it's quite dense. It's going to have a relatively low impact compared to if this was a lower density model. If this was a lower density model, you know, I'd probably consider changing the Z intensity or the smooth value to a lower value, just so it doesn't completely flatten out the entire model. Because if it does, then we're getting back to exactly what I had before doing all the sculpting, essentially. And the key, though, too, is to make sure you're not just smoothing over everything. You're kind of randomizing how you're smoothing, because you can see them kind of bouncing around. That way it helps keep the forms that are there, but kind of blends them in a little bit without doing an overall blend over everything else. And then also pen pressure. You know, if you want to keep it a little bit lighter, especially if you end up working on a slightly lower level down the road once we have subdivision levels, you know, the lighter you push on the tablet, you know, you're going to get a lower intensity smooth as well. So just making sure you're not just pushing 100% down and moving things around, because, you know, with a mouse, that's kind of what you get, where it would start to smooth things out quite drastically. Now, again, because our poly count's a little bit higher, we're not necessarily going to see that so much. So I'm just going to go around to some of these forms and start to flesh this out, no pun intended. Now, one thing I did, if you're finding, you know, the body or some of these other elements are getting in the way, is I've created these polygroups. Because if you watch the video, if you go back to the video, I ended up going in and I created some polygroups for each of the legs and each of the toes. So if I do a Control-Shift-Click on the polygroup, it's going to just isolate that one component. So it just makes it easier for me to see what I'm actually doing when I start going around and adding in my detail. So things like elbows, where you definitely get a little bit more creasing and whatnot, I'm going to define that just a little bit more. And again, just kind of doing a very light, random smooth. This will help inform, once I go into my dam standard, where some of these wrinkles are going to be. Now, my dam standard, you probably want to reduce this down. It does get quite intense fairly quick. So by reducing that down just a little bit, we want to create those nice sharp outlines, but we can get them by just kind of going over an area just repeatedly, as opposed to just a one stroke thing. That way there's just a little bit more control over what we're doing, which is pretty cool. So for an elbow, you know, you're going to have this type of knuckly kind of build up. And anyhow, for this creature, it's going to. Now you can see with the smooth, though, how much it just kind of obliterates that, or it gets rid of that. Just got to be careful with how much you push on that. Usually what I'll do is I'll smooth it out more to the edges of the harsher lines, just so it kind of blends into the rest of the model. Now to create a polygroup, if you haven't had a chance to do that, it's really easy. I'm going to do this for the mouth here, just so I can start detailing the interior of the mouth, and we can look at some of the other brushes. Is mask this area out. Now, we could obviously use just the regular paint mask, but there is a thickness in here. I want to make sure I'm getting the entire interior. So what I might do instead is holding down Control, go over to my mask and switch back over to lasso, which usually these are the two main masks you're going to use, either lasso or dots. Go in to this area here, and I can see, yeah, that got almost everything. There's a little bit of that interior I might want to get. So, this is where I might go in with my dots and just make sure that I'm getting this interior section as well. A little bit more than what I have with the lasso. There we go. Maybe deselect that a bit. So we can soften or harden that selection. Because we're going to convert this into a polygroup, we might want to harden this just so it's a little bit of a more solid edge, but it's probably fine just the way it is. But if you did want to harden or soften a mask, and I think I mentioned this when we first started talking about masks, Control clicking softens, and Control Alt clicking will harden the edge. So I'm going to convert this to a polygroup. So essentially, any masked area can be converted to a polygroup by just hitting Control W. The mask disappears, but if I go into my poly frame, again, that's this button right here, or Shift F will also show you that. You can see that we have this coloration change between the masked area that I had masked out and then the other components. So you can kind of see this for the legs as well, and then each of the toes also. So what this means essentially is that they act as kind of an island, and that you can isolate. So you can either isolate them through visibility, which is what I'm going to do with the mouse here, or the mouth here. You can also use a feature which is located here that I suggest adding to your palette. And in one of the videos, I did do this. I added this to the palette, so that's there. This guy under here. So there's a bunch of awesome masking brushes under auto masking, and the one that I suggest adding to your palette today, or there's two actually. This one here, which is masked by Polygroups. So this is really interesting. So if I turn this up to anything more than 0, let's go all the way up to 100 here, and I start to sculpt, you can see that as I'm let me just go back into my clay buildup here. As I'm sculpting, you can see that it stops. If I start sculpting on the one side, it's going to stop exactly where that polygroup is. Or if I start sculpting on this side, again, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to prevent from going into the other neighboring areas. So this is very useful if you want to confine what you're doing to a specific selection without interfering or modifying components or elements you've sculpted that you want to keep. So that's actually a really useful tool. So again, I've added that to my custom palette. And another one that I've added to the custom palette is this guy right here, backface mask. This is going to be very useful, especially when you get into membranes. There's quite a few of your sculptures that have thinner membranes, whether it's the manta dog or the seahorse creature with the gills and whatnot. You're going to want to use this, because if you have a thinner area and a thick brush, and you go over that area, let's say I'm pulling some stuff out here with my clay buildup, it's going to automatically, it could automatically go through that, depending on how big the brush is. Let's see, is this going to work? Yeah, so it could go right through and destroy everything on the other side. So again, backface mask, which again is under the same category, so under auto masking, right here, backface mask. So with that on, I can modify one side and not worry about anything away from camera. Again, it's untouched. So this is very useful for, maybe thickening out a bit of a membrane or thinning up a bit of a membrane without, pushing it through itself or distorting what's happening on the other side. So it's a very useful one to make sure you're aware of and adding to your custom palette. All right, so I've got this mouth bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just hide. Well, do I want this one? Here, let me inverse this. So you can, again, isolate an area once you have a polygroup on it by using Control-Shift and then clicking on it. I can invert my selection by Control-Shift and then doing a marquee select away from the model. I can bring everything back by just Control-Shift and tapping. That brings everything back. Or, you can also do rectangle selects as well. So if I do Control-Shift and do a marquee select, anything within that green triangle will be visible. And if I want to just hide elements, I could do a Control-Shift-Alt. Remember, Alt always inverts whatever the operation is. So you get instead of a green marquee, you get a red marquee. So I can hide things that way.
Sorry, Chris. You
Did his mic
you
connect?
mute yourself.
Yeah, we can't hear you, buddy.
What about now?
Yeah,
you're
good.
back.
Yeah, we
All right.
It's good now.
How much of it did you hear? Did I cut out? When did I cut out?
About 5 seconds or something.
Oh, okay, so you didn't miss anything. Good stuff. I was just having an internal debate, so you missed all of the good stuff. Whether I want to do the gums as part of my palette or if I want to do them separate. Now, typically, I'll do them as separate geometry. So I might do that as separate geometry, just because it is easier to rig that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to push in some of this stuff. Now let me just make sure backface mask is off. I don't need it on for this. So I'm just going to create a little bit more of a cavity in here. I'm just going to have a fairly expandable tongue as part of this rig, as like a chameleon's tongue almost. So I'm definitely not going to want to have that as part of my initial body. It's going to definitely be separate. So it's a matter of the teeth and everything. Should they stay separate? And it really depends on how much flexibility I want my lips to have. If it's like a human lips where you can really move things around, it'd be easier if I keep the teeth independent, like the gums, the inner palate as separate geometry. Because, if you look at your own mouth, you don't really see where they connect into the lip, unless you were to take your lip and fold it up, and then you would see, where everything kind of connects and seamlessly kind of transitions from one section to the other. But other than that, you would never really see where gums meet. So, maybe I do want to do the gums and teeth as definitely teeth, but maybe the gums as separate geometry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to block in that aspect. So let's see here. I'm going to start by just selecting where the gums would be. So probably around this area here, and around this area. Maybe a bit lower, maybe around here. And the lower palate as well. So I'm going to get that entire section. Something like that.
Christian, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
So because I'm so far behind your current point, would it be beneficial for me to just step out of this presentation and go into your previous videos and start going from there?
Maybe, although there could be some key tidbits you might want to pick up from this, perhaps.
Yeah, I'll be watching this video later on once I've caught up with that video, kind of like a domino effect.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
All right. Okay. So you don't mind if I just duck out?
Nope. Yeah, if that's gonna work for you, then definitely do that then.
All right, Christian. Thank you very much.
Yep. So what I'm going to do then is I separate this out. So I'm going to create a polygroup for that. So I've got this guy right here now. And maybe I'll do the same thing for the upper palette as well. So I don't know what this stuff is here. So let me get rid of that. Looks like there's some holes forming, which is fine. As soon as I re-dynamesh that, then that's going to be okay. But let me just go in and create my upper palette as well. And again, I'm going to create a polygroup for that, so Control W. All right. And we have our subtools. So if I go into my subtools, we have the eyeballs. Let me unhide everything here. So we have the eyeballs, and we have our creature. So I'm just going to duplicate out the creature. So we've got duplicate down here. So now I've got two creatures. And I'm just going to hide one so I don't get confused here. So again, that's the little eyeball here in the layers. And what I want to do is I want to isolate the upper palette and the lower palette. So I just want to isolate these two things. So to do that, I'm going to select one. I'm going to invert that selection. And then I'm going to select the other, which will make that disappear at this point. So I've got the two upper and lower palettes selected. I'm going to invert that again. So again, remember the rectangle select. So I've got them here. And I'm just going to remove delete hidden. So it's just going to basically delete anything other than that palette there. So I'm going to do that. So let's see here. Which I've added that to my my palette here. So delete hidden, which again is part of that video. But if you're looking for it, it's under geometry, modify topology, and it's somewhere right here, delete hidden. And that just removes any geometry that you don't want. So with that gone, I can now start working on building up and fleshing out the gums. So let's see, let's bring him back here. So I'm going to hide. You can see that we have our lower lip. We got our gum section. If I go into my gums now. So what I might consider doing is adding a little bit of thickness to that. Because right now it's just a single-sided piece of geometry, which is fine. You know, eventually we wouldn't probably have a bottom section. But, you know, if I wanted to dynamesh this, let's say I did, you know, it works, it automatically fills in any gaps. So it might have some issues with single-sided geometry. So there's a couple ways we can add thickness to something. The easiest way for now, we'll just go through this using the extract. And if I just click on extract, you can see that it's added thickness. Now, that thickness doesn't exist, though, until I click on accept. So as soon as I move my camera, it's going to disappear. So, you know, if that thickness is too much or too little, I can change that value in through here. So that was 0.02. So I can go a little bit lower. So you can see that, you know, that's probably too low. Maybe I should have just kept it the way it was. That's way too much. I'll never go back. Let me just manually. Yeah, there we go. Nope, that's way too. 0.0. I think it was like 0.02. Let me just do that again. Something like that's fine. You can see it's doing both the upper lips and the lower lips, or the upper palette and lower palette. That's fine. So I'm going to click accept. That makes it actual geometry. And I'm going to dynamesh it. So we also added dynamesh to our palette. So let me just dynamesh that. There we go. And we should still have our polygroups. Yep, they're here. So I should be able to now go back in and start to sculpt. So I'm going to use my clay buildup. And I'm going to start pulling out the gums where the teeth are going to be situated in here. And start working. So it's a good idea to see if you can find any reference for what the interior of your creature's mouth is going to look like. So I know that with a frog, there is this kind of patterning that happens. So let me just get this going on. And there's a kind of a thicker bit where the tongue's going to connect in. So let me just get that happening. And I'm just going to redynamesh that. If I can, there we go. Oh, let me just unhide everything. Dynamesh that. So just, is Dynamesh not even on? I thought it was for sure. Let me see. It's on. Why is it? Oh, maybe I've inverted the. There we go. Should work now. Okay. Stupid Dynamesh. Let me just increase that. Make sure it's actually doing something. It's interesting. Why are you not? There we go. It's being finicky. All right. So let me go back into this. So we do have this interesting thing happening where, you know, we've got the thickness has its own polygroup. What I want to do is probably just re-isolate them so that the lower gums are their own polygroup from the upper gums. So let me just go back into my mask, lasso, and I'm just going to isolate this as a polygroup. And then I'll just go in and do the same thing for the upper gums as well, just so that when I isolate this, it's I'm seeing the entire object. So it just makes it easier to do what I need to do. All right, so before going much further, I probably need some teeth. So there's a bunch of ways we could do this. So for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer, or I'm going to create a new object. So insert. And I'm going to grab a cylinder or sphere, maybe more of a sphere. This guy looks like he has more rounded, kind of more of a rounded tooth type of thing. And I'm just going to move this over, scale it down. And I probably want the gums to go a little bit more forward. So it'd be closer to where this edge of the lip is. So I'm going to have to tweak that shape just a bit still, but go into this and shape it. And maybe I'll thin this up just a bit. So this is where that sculptress brush comes in handy. It does a really good job of thinning things up and kind of creating a bit of a point as it does that. If it's going to, let's see if it works for me here a little bit. Not really, but let's see. Not so much. Here, let me just grab the move brush. Again, I'm just going to go in and shape this, add in as much detail as I can while keeping it, you know, relatively low. And again, I'll just add in a little bit of extra detail here. So I got the sculptress brush on, so this is going to tessellate, which just adds in detail with each stroke, as we can see there. This guy's pretty big, so, you know, nothing too unique though, because otherwise it's going to look like it's repeating. So, you know, enough of the broad strokes that I can easily go in and randomize them enough for each one. And that's too big, so let me just shrink this down. So I'm going to change the pivot for this. That's using the Alt key, and that allows me to drag this around to wherever I want my object to scale from. So he's going to have little sharp teeth. What happened there? Did it crash? No, curse you, ZBrush. Oh, now my ear's going again. What's going on? It's you guys. I don't think. All right. Let's see. It's talking early in the morning, maybe. Let me go back into ZBrush.
ZBrush's recovery system got me spoiled, and it made me stop like saving on 3D modeling suites. So I lost a lot of work on 3D modeling suites because I got so used to ZBrush saving files for me.
It does work pretty good. I don't know how much it saved for me though, but in your light box that pops up when you open ZBrush, your saves should be here. So let's see. I think this is the most recent one here. Let's open it up and hopefully some of that's there. No, maybe that's not the most recent one. All right, let me just go through some of these here. Maybe it's gone forever. Bummer. It's gone. That's okay. But essentially, that's how I would approach the gums and the teeth. So I'm going to just very, very quickly kind of get back to where I was. So let me just actually open the file. All right, so it's kind of where we are. All right.
Hey, Chris.
Yo.
Just random. Are you still going to review our sculpts today?
What we're going to do is I'm going to go through a few more approaches. Yeah, I will review them at some point in the next day, though. So next week, just so you have a little bit more time to develop them based off of comments, we'll do a more thorough review in class, the entire class next week.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some elements, especially when we get into duplicating objects for spikes and things like that, that I just wanted to go through. So in terms of separating out things for like gums, you could also just start with a like a sphere and pull things out. You don't have to necessarily go the approach I did. There's always multiple ways to do that. But let's get into some of these other brushes that'll be useful to help you block in your form. So one thing I wanted to discuss are these IM brushes, vector brushes, and then the extractor brushes. So for spikes, what I would suggest doing is creating creating one spike, and then what we can do is create a insert mesh with that. An insert mesh is basically just a tool, as a duplicate that you can place individually, or you can also, as a brush, so you can basically project these on individually, or you can draw them along curves as an option. So let's see if I can just create a new object here. So let me just insert a, what's a good shape, like a cylinder? Yeah, let's go with the cylinder. And I've got my Sculptress. I'm going to use my Sculptress brush just to create a bit of a spike with this. So, whoops, not gimbal. Sculptress, there we go. Turn on symmetry. And I'm just going to go around and create a bit more of a spiky bit here. All right, and let me just pull that around a bit. So kind of like a more of a straighter kind of spike. Let me use the high polish or trim dynamic just to give it some slight angled bits and move brush. And then, we could add in a little bit more detail. You might want to pull this down just a bit. Be rooted into the surface. All right. So, you want to detail it as much as you would want to detail a single spike. And then what we can do is we can create an insert brush with this. So Insert brushes are interesting in ZBrush. There are a whole bunch of insert brushes that come standard for doing things like buttons and buckles. You can see there's a couple here. We can kind of review what's inside an insert brush by hitting the M key. And this will kind of bring up, you know, what's available. And again, they're just basically brushes that allow you to place objects on the object. So we can create our own insert brush or multi-brush. Now in this case, it's just going to be a single object. So let me just select the object. And the first thing I just want to do is make sure I'm aligning it so that it's going to be drawn the right way. Now, you know, if it's wrong, we can always just recreate a new one, but I think this is going to be right where Z is pointing up. Anyhow, we'll find out. It's a little bit trial and error, but I think that's going to be about right. So to create an insert brush, just make sure that subtool is selected. We just go over to our brush palette or menu, and I'm just going to move this over. I'm going to dock it on the screen left. And we've got right here. So create insert brush. And we're going to create a new insert brush. There we go. And we probably want to save it off as well in case we add to it. So what I'm going to do is save this off. So under here, save as, under brushes. And you can see I've already started saving a few off from before. So let me just call this one Creature Spike 2. So we've got this brush now that is activated. So if I go back over to my creature here, there we go. Yeah, let me just get the camera around, and we're back. So basically, we can place these horns or spikes anywhere along the creature based off of where we drag them out from. So if we were doing something, say, along the back of the creature, let's say I had a row of spikes, what I could do then is go into stroke. So stroke, this is where you'll find the sculptress brush. Lazy mouse, which we haven't really talked about, although if you remember from last year, we did look at that. It's like a steady brush, which we'll come back to at some point. There's Sculptress Pro is under here as well. And then we also have curve, this curve option. So if I click on curve mode, what this does is we can draw out a curve. And then where I let go, it's going to place the spikes. Now, it might take a second to update. It depends on the density. So maybe my spikes might be too dense. I guess we'll find out in a second. Still thinking. I don't see any spikes. Where are my spikes? Here, let me. What the? All right, let me just make sure that I'm under stroke. Curve mode. Let me see. Yeah, I think that's all good. Just increase the size of my brush here. And let me do it again. There we go. They're back. So basically, we can throw in these spikes, and they'll just appear automatically where the brush stroke is. So for example, for a Yufei, where you have all those little tiny spikes, if you wanted to keep them all individual, I mean, this is a great way to go about doing that. Again, just by simply.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Try that. Now once you have them placed, now they are right now part of the original creatures subtool, which if you're using Dynamesh still, is probably not a good thing, because when you re-Dynamesh, it'll all blend it together into one object. So what I suggest doing maybe is going down to split, and then splitting to similar parts. So what that will do is it'll extract the spikes from the body. So split to similar parts. Okay, it might take a second to do that. Oh, there we go. And so we have our body, but we also have the spikes, which are their own thing. And then what you could do if you want to start randomizing their shape and position is going into down the list here. There's this polygroups menu. Now remember polygroups, we did that to isolate the mouth, just so that we can kind of break up the individual pieces. We could auto group everything. What auto group does is it just randomizes the group. So every different spike will have its own polygroup essentially. So if we look at this now, if I get in close, you can see that, yeah, every spike actually does have its own polygroup. So I can then go in and isolate things and move things around. So I could either isolate something this way. And let me just go back to my gizmo brush and center it. So, you know, if I wanted to kind of scale these or rotate them, I could start, you know, moving things around this way. Or, you know, probably need to bury everything into the skin just a little bit. So I might just want to drag everything straight down. Or, you know, using my mask by polygons that I explained earlier, I can then go in and start moving things around with my my move brush. So with mask by polygons on, it'll just isolate per spike. So that way we can kind of randomize things that way. And break things up. So that's a good way to do that. Because without that on, right? Without the mask by polygons on, if I had a big brush, you know, it's going to grab everything, which will mush everything around. So you know, it's not quite what we would want if we wanted to create more of a natural randomization. So that's a good brush. Another one that's good. So Jonathan was asking about what do we draw cuticles around our objects. So the next brush is quite good for doing that. It's the new brush. It just came out in the last version. So you guys wouldn't have had this at school because we were still using the 2019 last year. But it's the extractor brushes. They're really awesome. You can use them for a variety of things, but let's start by using it just for the cuticle here. So what I'm going to do is turn off the mask on this guy. And I'm going to go over to the extractor brush. So there are these three brushes down at the bottom. So if I hit X, it'll just kind of go between these. So we have an extractor dots, we have an extractor drag, and then the extractor. We're going to touch on all three because they're all useful. They just do the same thing slightly differently. So let's start with the extractor drag. So essentially what it does is it's creating a custom alpha based off of what you sculpt. Before you can do that, it's a good idea to have a fresh canvas to start with. So with the extractor, now because this is a new scene and I lost everything I had done before, it looks like I don't really have a lot of history on the body at the moment. But if you do, what you want to do is hold down Control and just click where in the timeline you want to start your new custom sculpt from. So in this case, I'm just going to click at the end. That's not always going to be the case, but in this case it is. Whoops. What I want to do is go in and start sculpting in where I want these things to connect. So let me see here. I've got clay buildup, so maybe I'll start going around here. I'm just going to turn that off. I don't need this on here, so let me just undo that. Do it faster. There we go. Just kind of build this up. Good. Maybe there's going to be some slight rippling around that. Standard to kind of get in there, add in whatever kind of details I need. You know, you don't want to go crazy, but you know, the more details you have, the more that's gonna get replicated. So just less busy work you're gonna have to do down the road, which is cool. All right, so let's say that's the cuticle I'm going to be using for that, something like that. Then we go into the extractor brush, so that's B, and then down to the X, and then we're going to use this guy, the D, so the drag. And then we're going to hit the G key. So what the G key does is it'll grabs an alpha. So you can see my brush turns into this blue shape. I'm going to scale my brush up to a size that encompasses this. And I'm just going to drag over that object. Did I drag enough? No, I didn't drag enough. Let me do that again. So let me just hit G. And again, I'm just going to drag over that object. Oh, you know what? I'm on extractor dot. Stupid me. Here, let me undo that. I'm going to use the extractor drag. This one's a bit better. All right. So again, I'm going to hold down G or tap G, and I'm just going to go over this. So it's a little bit different because I just want to make sure that the circumference is outside of the area here. So something like this. Might take a second to update. I'm going to do one last time here. There we go. Something a little bit more even. Cool. So now what I can do, though, is I can now start placing this down, if it lets me here, placing this down around my object. Oh, you know what? I don't think it actually created the thing. There we go. The alpha should come up over here. Maybe these, here, let me just hide the these guys for a second. Let me do this again. And I should probably get a little bit more in the center for that, but let's see, does it work? There we go. Let me do this again so it's more centered. There, that's what I want to see. You can see the alpha over here, so you know it's done right. And then what I can do is I can go around and start drawing these out. Now it seems to be these guys seem to be kind of blocking where this is, which is kind of annoying here. So let's see. Yeah, I mean, I guess we could always just manually move them around, but essentially what this is doing is it's placing this down. Now you might notice that the resolution is a little bit low. So if I want something a little bit higher res like this, back over under my brush, alpha menu, sorry, under my alpha menu. If I can just dock that over here. And I hit the G key, you can see that from brush gets activated down here. So I can change the width of the texture. So right now it's 128 pixels. So, you know, if I need more detail, I might want to go 256 or 512. Just remember, the higher that number, the slower it's going to be to extract. So let me try this again here. Cool. Yeah, still a little bit lower resolution though. I wonder if I bring up the sculptress brush, if that's gonna. No. Yeah, if there's not a lot of polygons there, then you know, it is going to give you a bit. Let me just reduce the Z intensity of this. Yeah, it still looks like it's not quite doing what I want it to do. Yeah, so if that's the case, maybe we'll try a different extractor brush, because this one's not quite working as well. So the other extractor brush, which is better for, you know, longer repeating textures, like wrinkles and stuff like that. Let me just go into the B key for the brushes. We got the regular extractor, so again, the G. So it's almost like creating a scan. So you just kind of drag you just drag your brush over the area where you want the alpha to be. Takes a second. There it is. So now when I move this, we get this. Now, why is it because of the sculptress? It's kind of working, but kind of not working at the same time. It's definitely giving me a. Let me just increase the Z intensity again. Just finding that magic number. But basically, we can kind of repeat where those cuticles are. Now, for this, obviously, we would need it denser. But, you know, if you're just manually placing them, you know, you could match that up. But maybe this is a bad example for this particular thing, because I think maybe the vector brush might be better for that. So we'll take a look at that in a second. Another good thing, though, for the extractor brush, if I undo this a little bit, let me just go back to the beginning, which might be a little bit more practical, is for things like wrinkles and stuff like that. So if I did want to put in, you know, details, you know, on the toes or maybe on the knees here. So just going into my damn standard and just making sure that my extractor brush timeline is set. So, you know, I think that's probably good the way where it is still. I could go in and start, you know, adding in details here. That might be a little bit much. But let's see. And again, using that extractor brush. So again, BXT is the main extractor here. So, and then the G key allows us to do that scan over the area. Then we can start kind of placing these areas down. So I can start, you know, going over things like the toes, for example, where I might want some of these wrinkles and stuff to be, or a little bit more of the folds and whatnot. So, you know, this kind of detail is probably, you know, at this level, the bigger details are okay, but you definitely want to stay away from finer details at this stage. But we can definitely use that extractor brush to get some really nice kind of skin-like details really quickly, just by, or scales even, things like that. So it's quite useful for that type of thing. Because again, you just have to do your pattern. Whatever that pattern may be. And then the extractor brush will just keep repeating that over and over again. So again, if I were to go to BXT, which is the hotkey to bring it up, and then the G key, then you can start getting, you know, your repeating patterns that way, which is, you know, it's pretty useful for that. Although, you know, maybe I wouldn't do scales this way. Great for wrinkles though, definitely wrinkles and stuff like that. Now the third one, so we had the IM brush that was good for things like the spikes, and I'd probably do that for the teeth as well, for adding in the teeth once I get into the gums. The extractor brush is good for repeating things like wrinkles and stuff like that, and just repeating details you don't have to sculpt every single time. We also have the vector displacement brushes, which are also pretty cool. So let's check that out. We can create them on in the same project, or we could create a separate tool for that. So maybe I'll go to the cylinder project here for a second, and let's just insert a plane. So just a plain 3D, and let's get rid of this cylinder here. So delete. All right, so we just have this plane. The first thing we're going to want to do is use this new, well, not new, but for you guys it would probably be new, this feature called morph targets. So what a morph target does is you would store kind of the shape of the creature. So for example, I would go in and let me see here, under morph target right there, store the morph target, so store MT. And what it does is it takes kind of a snapshot. It remembers where everything is. So it's not a layer. It's a bit different than using layers, but it acts in a similar fashion, but, you know, a little bit better actually. So, you know, if I'm going in and sculpting details, so let me go back to maybe my wrinkle brush here with the extractor. and I'm going through and I'm adding in kind of wrinkles and stuff like that, what I can do is I can go into my morph brush once I've activated the morph target. So this is cool, which is here under the M's. And this is a good one to make sure you add to your palette. And then you can start kind of blending things down. So you can blend them down to nothing, back to the original shape. Or, you can just kind of fade things in and use just a little bit of what you did or nothing at all. So it's quite useful. So I guess the morph brush with using morph targets. So, well, why am I going into that? Well, because when we get into the vector brushes, we're going to be starting with a plane 3D, which again, which was just an insert option here. So just the, again, plane 3D. And basically with vector brushes or a vector displacement, what's this? Requires a valid, okay, 1 sec, let me just get rid of this brush here. With the vector displacement, how this works is that it basically will give you proper displacement, not just displacement like an alpha does, where it's just straight up or down, but it also calculates curvature and things like that as well. So, which is pretty cool. So first of all, let me just kind of mask out the area I'm going to be working in. Let's subdivide this a few times. So let's see here. Let me minimize this side. So right, 16,000. Anything less than 250,000 polygons seems to work pretty good. But you just have to remember that whatever the value is of this, it ends up getting stored. So you could expand the size of your file quite a lot if you have like a lot of these vector brushes. Usually you'll save them off as a separate file, so it should be fine. So for my guy here, he's got all these little nodules down his back, so maybe I'll use it for that. So if we look at the illustration here, he's got like these little hairy lumps that kind of is a pattern that go down his back here that you can kind of see there. So maybe I want to create a bit more of a detailed element for that. So I'm going to start by creating a morph target for this, so I can always make sure the edges stay perfectly flat. Now, if they're not exactly the way they are in a default position, if you move it even just a little bit, they will come up when you project them. So you just got to make sure that only the sculpted area is what is changed or different. Excuse me. So let me go into the morph target right here, store morph target. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of sculpt in the detail there. So it's going to just be this lumpy bit that, it's going to have some details and things like that. Now, again, the cool thing with this is that you can have overlap, which you can't necessarily have with a vector or with a regular extractor or any of the other alphas. And that's just height. So let me go in and just add in a little bit more detail. Where's my, there we go. Something like that, maybe. And then I'm using my morph brush. I'm going to just make sure that the edges are perfectly straight. It looks like they are, but it's always a good idea to be better safe than sorry. You could technically go right through the middle of this and morph everything back down to nothing. Right, and I'm going to save this as a vector displacement. To do this, we're going to start by going over to our brushes menu. So it's a good idea to dock it over on the side, which I have over here still. And we're going to load up our layers brush, which works well with the vector displacement. So let's type in L, and here it is here, layer. And I'm going to start by duplicating this out. So I'm making a clone of this. So I can do that by two ways. One is clicking clone. The other thing I could do is save as. If I save as, it automatically clones it, but gives it a name. So I'm going to call this and I have a couple VDMs already. Vector displacement map is VDM's the acronym for that. So I'll just call this one 3. There we go. So we still have our original layer brush.
Sorry, Chris, question about the brush. Yep. If you already store this brush every time, the next time you want to use this brush, we need to reload it, or it will store in the brush?
Right. That's a good question. It's probably a good idea not to store it in ZBrush because you might not use it all the time, and they do get quite large, the files. So if you do store it, you're going to end up waiting a long time for ZBrush to open. So it might not be a good idea. But if you store config, then it should get locked in there. It does look like I did save over my layer brush. Whoopsie. So let me do a clone. So I'm going to clone that. Let's see if it allows me to do that. I think I just froze it. What happened here? Stupid thing. Anyhow, I might have to kill it. I think it's frozen. Oh wait, do I have a? Nope. I think it's. Oh wait, nope. Here it is. I didn't. I was loading something. That's why. So we could load up a vector displacement that I have from before. So maybe I'll do that. So maybe this guy right here. And then the new one that I have here. So we have this layer. You know what? I'm going to actually clone it just because the original layer brush, it did get replaced. It just doesn't update right away, which is probably why I didn't notice it before. So I'm going to clone it first and then save as. And then once you've done that, you just have to click on this button right here. So from mesh. So before doing that, the next thing to remember is just make sure that perspective is turned off. So we do need to make sure the camera is in orthographic mode and it's perfectly flat to camera. So it needs to be perfectly straight on camera. And then we can go from mesh. There we go there. So now we have it in here. So if I go back over to my creature, I now have this brush I can start dragging out from. So provided I'm using the drag brush, which is a little bit different from a regular brush. So basically this allows me to drag out the details. Now I just have to make sure I'm actually on the, there we go, on the object. Now it looks like it's not quite doing it well. So what's going on? Z intensity. And why is it not working for me here? Everything's falling apart. My voice is going and let me try my other vector displacement that I created the other day, see if this works. Oh, that one works. Works well. So why is my other one not working here? Let's find out. Yeah, it's just really kind of really faint. It's actually not really displacing nearly as much as it needs to there. Let's try it again. So I'm just going to go back over here. Let me create another plane. So I'm just going to insert a new plane. There we go. Let me hide the original plane. And let me just do something a bit more like a horn or something. So I'm going to use the snake hook. Oh, let me just do a morph target first. There we go. And I'm going to grab the snake hook, which I don't have there. So let me just go into it. Snake hook 1. There we go. And maybe with the sculptress brush on here. Let's see if that is it there for me. All right, so I've got some kind of horny, horn-like thorn. Okay, there we go. And you know, give it a little bit of detail here. So give it a bit of a ridge or something. All right, let's just pretend that's okay. I just want to see if this actually is going to work for me here. So again, perspective's off. I've got my ortho camera on here. And I want to make sure I'm on the right brush because it's just going to get added to the list. And I'm going to go from brush. There we go. So let me go back over to our creature and see what's going on here. What gives? Weird. Yeah, because look, it's not dimensional. All right, well, what am I doing? What am I doing wrong here? Looks like I'll come back to that because something's not quite working there. Because as you can see, it's just a flat image, which is not what we want. Oh, you know what? I know. It's the morph target. Because I was demonstrating morph targets with the model, morph targets on, and vector displacement brushes just don't like morph targets. Their morph targets are essential when you're creating them, right? So you can flatten the edges. It doesn't like being on when you're applying. Now, let's see. Do I have a morph target on this guy? Let's find out. So let me just go down here. And yeah, so there was a morph target created. So I'm going to delete the morph target. There we go. And let's, well, I don't know, it seems to be kind of the same thing, just kind of all flat and not working at all. Because the ones I just created last night, just to make sure everything's the same, these seem to work perfectly fine, right? Like these little thorny kind of spikes, you know, that seems to work perfectly good. And I created a couple little eyeball cavities. Use as noses. Those look pretty good, right? Why is the one I'm not? I don't know. We'll come back to it. I'll try to figure out what's different. Better yet, try it yourself and see if it works for you, because it could be something that I have activated on my computer that's just not working at the moment. But yeah, one thing I noticed though just now is that the vector displacement should be a 3D alpha. You can kind of see it says 3D alpha there. But these guys here, this one's a 3D alpha, but this one's coming up with not a 3D alpha. So why is that? Anyhow, I'm gonna have to investigate it. Something I must have clicked when I was demonstrating, or when it crashed, caused some problems. Oh well. Lastly, I know some of you guys are gonna have to block in some fins and scale, like fish type of fins. So what I would suggest doing is something like this. So let me just first of all create just a very simple shape as the main kind of spine of a fin. So let me see here. Let me go in and insert. If I could grab that here. Let's go with a cylinder. It's up. I'll just keep it straight for now. Go a little bit thinner. And again, I'm just kind of creating the spine that the skin part of the fin would be kind of strung between. All right, and then let me just go in and bulge this up a little bit. Maybe move it around a little bit. Cool. And let's see, maybe I'll go a little bit sharper at the top here. So let me go in with my damn standard. You know, something like that maybe. So I'm just going to create a couple of these. So what I'll do is just change the pivot. Remember, that's the Alt key. So we can duplicate objects as well without going through the process of creating an IM brush, just by holding down Control and then just moving them out. So I'm just going to create just a couple of these spines, just getting a little bit smaller with each one. and just rotating them down just a little bit. Just a little bit. Maybe they should stay relatively similar thickness, but just getting a little bit smaller with each one. All right, now for the middle part, or for the part that would be the actual skin part. If you watch the video, I did this for the original eyelid parts, but if you haven't, I'll just go through this again. If it works, I'm having some problems, it looks like, with, with some things at the moment, but we got this really cool brush, the quad fill brush. Where is that? So under B for brushes, curve, where is it here? I'll never be able to find it now, so let me see. We have the curve, snap, curve surface, curve tri-fill. Yeah, so one of these ones, right? Curve quad fill, that's the one I want. So this is kind of cool. So let me just reduce my brush size. This is where I might use the lazy mouse just so that there's less wobble in my curve. So let me see if this will work with this. So under my stroke, lazy mouse is an essential one actually to add to your shelf, which we haven't done yet. And this is just kind of like a steady stroke. So it just allows for a much smoother drawing of the curve. So let me just go under stroke and just increase the radius. Increase the radius, which is right here. There we go. So I can just get a little bit of a smoother result. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through and just draw in where I want the that to be. And you can see that it's quite thick. It's going to be as thick as what your brush is. So if I minimize the brush or shrink it down a little bit and just tap the curve, if it's going to, is it going to work for me? Let me just go here, draw size and tap. There we go. Now it's a bit finicky. It's a bit finicky. So if I tap the curve, there, it's going to shrink up the shrink that up a bit. Now you don't want to go too thin, otherwise it becomes a bit of a nightmare to retopologize. But you can actually get it relatively, you know, that's not too bad actually. And then what you can do from there is you know, move things around just a little bit. Let me just continue on and just do one more. So again, just going into the autosave. I'm still on it, so let me just, oh. I think maybe I have touch on, do I? For the, yeah, I did. That's why I was acting up. So let me do one more here. Whoops. I think I just moved that one. It's being really, really finicky today. Let me undo that. All right, let's start on this side. So again, we can follow that around and around and just, again, just kind of getting that exact pattern that I want. There we go. And that's the right thickness, so I'll do one more. Cool, and then the last one. So I'll just start here. Cool. And that's just a matter of moving some things around just a little bit, just so that they're better positioned. Oops. Oh, you know what? That's all part of the same level. Let's see. Yeah. Now, if there's polygroups, this is kind of cool with polygroups. So we already talked about hiding polygroups, but you can also mask a polygroup just by, if you're in the move tool, so, you know, W, E, or R, they bring up the gimbal. So if I control click on an element, it'll automatically isolate that from everything else so that, you know, I'm on the same tool, but I can just move that one component around. So that makes it very useful to do that. If I can get to the next one here. Cool. And then once I've got that in place, I can then start sculpting on these and moving things around a little bit. So again, let me just go back here. There we are. So I can start, you know, moving this into the surface a bit. Maybe I want to go in and add a bit of an inflate, make sure my symmetry is on. So add a bit of an inflate. Maybe just it's a little bit thicker maybe at the bottom. And maybe it needs to be a little bit thinner at the top so I can smooth that down a bit, maybe without that though. Just to get rid of that harsh edge. And then you can also go in and start adding in some striations. So you can use your clay buildup. I would maybe consider turning on backface mask for this just because it's so thin. But as long as I have symmetry on, which do I have on? Let's see. No. Let's see. If this was symmetrical, and then it would work. Then I could go through and start going in and adding in my slight, you know, the fanning in between, and adding a little bit more detail in there. Yeah, it's interesting. I think, yeah, it's masked out over on the one side, so I think that's why it was not quite working for me, because I do have the polygroups. No, mask by polygroups low. Yeah, but you can see that they both have different sides there, which is fine. You could always go in and do this as well, mirror and weld. And that should mirror things so that it's symmetrical at this point. So if I do go in and start, you know, bringing things out here, there we go. It's going to do both sides. I did lose that last little bit, but I don't think that was along a symmetrical line, so I'd have to maybe redo that again. It's looking a bit messy, but you get the idea. So you can kind of go in and again, it's going to affect both sides at the same time. So that's cool. All right, so a couple things to think about when you're fleshing things out. And a couple tools to help you add in those extra little bits. Yeah, the vector brush, though, I got to figure out why it's not working for me, because it should be that easy with what I did. But anyhow, any questions about this? Sorry, my voice is going.
I have a general sculpting question, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I'm just gonna post a quick video in the chat so you can see what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you go to like halfway through it, I'm just wondering, what do you recommend to get like a clean separation between the muscles, like the primary forms, not the not like the strands of muscles, but like the actual big shapes.
Like
if you
right
go,
now.
if you go back like to like 11 seconds, yeah, on that side, or sorry, scrub forward. Yeah, on that side of the cat. Like if you look at the arm and stuff like that, I'm just wondering what do you recommend to get them nice and tight and like a clear separation between the forms?
Are you going to actually see that in the final result? I guess is the first thing.
No, I guess it would be more smooth, but I'm just wondering, like, generally what you would do.
Yeah. What building things out using, again, just the simple brushes of the clay buildup and the dam standard. So finding the form. So for example, with his feet here, you know, where you know you would probably have a little bit more tendons and whatnot. So just slowly kind of building in those forms. So I think I decimated this. That's why it's a little bit lower res. And slowly building up the forms here. I'm going to put Dynamesh back on, though, just so that it's a bit easier to work with. So let me just do that. Just give it a second. There we go. So just slowly kind of building things up. Now, to have cleaner definition, that's where you would use the dam standard to start cutting in the details. But let me just keep going here a little bit first. Yeah, because to a certain degree, you want to kind of get those forms in there, but realizing that, you know, it's all going to get covered up by skin and fat. So there's the key markers that you would normally see if you were to look at like a really chiseled, like a muscular dog, for example, or a lion or tiger, where you actually do see some of those muscles poking through, or a stronger indication of them. So if we look at, say, okay, let's go with a lion. Right. And let's see if I can get a lion walking here. That's actually CG. So that's not a good reference. That's based off of a reference. So let's see. Let's find something real. I'll never find. Yeah, I mean, you are going to get indications of muscles, and you know, depending on the, like, this might be a bit better. Like even this one's even better because you actually start seeing the individual ribs and the serratus muscles a little bit in through there. You're definitely getting more of the definition in through the leg muscles. So things like that, you're going to definitely want to indicate. I wouldn't necessarily start cutting in too detailed because, you know, you're going to end up having to remove all that stuff or going over it. I mean, it's good to do that initially. Similar to, I did that also to a certain degree. But you know, a lot of this stuff is going to get covered up eventually with fat and skin and whatnot. So, but you know, definitely once you have an indication of where they are, just kind of fleshing them out again using that clay tubes. Slowly starts getting those forms, not overly smoothing it so that you do get the fatty buildup. You could always go in and start cutting things in with the maybe a lower intensity, but not that low. Damn standard. Again, knowing that you're going to want to kind of go back and reduce that. There's going to be a little bits here and there that get more defined, where you will see a little bit of the crevice where things get connected, or where there might be a bit of a hollow. So those areas you're going to want to refine just a little bit more, or define a little bit more, I should say. But really, it's just a matter of going through and building up the forms with really just those 2 or 3 brushes. Similar to how you would define forms in a drawing. And you know, and then you know, eventually that's going to end up looking much more believable than. But again, it depends. If you're just dealing with, you know, something that's just more muscle, and you don't really have a skin layer on it, then you know you might want to. You'll definitely want to define those more. But then you're going to have to ask yourself, well, if I'm seeing the individual muscles, should that be a single sculpted piece, or should I be using actual individual components and then kind of layering them in and whatnot? So then those are some different questions that would be more specific. But if we are putting skin on there and then eventually fur on top, you know, we're just kind of finding those forms, fleshing them out, like something like this where it's definitely too flat, right? By just drawing them in with the damn standard. So you're going to still want to go back in and start fleshing things out again to indicate where the buildup is. So you get those rounded shapes back, which we ended up losing quite a bit of. So if I do smooth this out or reduce the height of this, we'll still get a little bit more of that shadow, that kind of more natural kind of shadow where the muscle groups are.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if that necessarily helps or what, but yeah, but things like toes and in this case the nails, I probably want to go back in and start isolating those, but basically I need to still go do a once over. Once I've got the main shapes, which are basically those 2 videos, it's a matter of doing a once over before I even get into any kind of refinement. So, you know, it's still only halfway there, 50% there at this point. The more refinement you get, the easier it gets to start getting into those smaller details. The hardest thing is really just defining shapes, getting proportions in place, and just making sure the structure is there anatomically. So we'll be looking at that in class next class. So make sure that you're well beyond the Z-sphere stage for next week. Like you should be beyond like this stage, basically around this stage. So teeth, gums, have those indicated at least. Any kind of spikes, all that stuff should be relatively blocked in. It doesn't have to be super detailed because the underlying skin, we might reproportion a few things here and there, but start getting all those elements ready. I mean, once they're all separate subtools, it's easy to move things around and reproportion things a little bit as well. But that's where we want to go for next week. And if we can get there next week, then it gets easy to finish everything for the week after. I don't know if does that make sense, or do you guys have any other questions?
I think Yachi has a question.
Oh, Yachi, what's up? You there? Oh, do I have to read?
She didn't put anything in the chat. Her hand's up though.
Oh, hey, Yachi, do you have a question? Your hand's up.
Well, I have a question about a personal question about my Gakru is a leg part. In leg part, in the lower part it looks like it's very near the top part. So should I separate them?
Let's take a look at it again. So let me go into here, right? And
can you open it again? I forgot to upload.
let me just open it again. Sorry. So are we looking at the model or the design?
Design.
Yeah. Oh, just go in here. So Yachi, let's see. Any minute. Yeah, I'm seem to be having some glitches today with the computer, some slowdowns and stuff. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, Teams has been kind of weird too today.
Hopefully it's not just me. Let me grab a different browser. Let's try it again.
Maybe you can just search the kangaroo. This seems like kangaroo leg, so it's more easy. Yeah.
Sure. Kangaroo.
I'm wondering if class is dismissed, by the way.
Oh, it is. Yeah. If you want to grab some food or something, feel free to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
All right. That's the personal question. So.
All right. So we're looking at kangaroo feet.
Yeah, kangaroo feet. Because usually they look like squirrel and the right. So.
Yeah, but they do have those weird giant toes, though.
Yeah. So when they jump, their lower leg will separate with the top part.
You mean like this?
Yeah. So when I'm sculpting, it's really hard to separate these two parts.
You could lengthen out the leg a little bit.
Okay. So he should stand more straight, right?
Well, it's not necessarily straight. You could almost think of it as him being held up with somebody under his chest, and his legs are just dangling down there. So they're a little bit straighter, as opposed to modeling him in a sitting pose.
Yeah.
Because for sculpting and getting the details, it might be better. When it comes to rigging, Dennis might want you to reposition them, but it's easy enough just to rotate the geometry after everything's been finished.
Yeah, and the other question about, because the gecko skin is very thin, right? But we can see the muscles on the kangaroos. So I don't want. I want like his body's like geckos. That means this looks like don't like kangaroo's muscles. It's too. I think it's. So should I? So I'm so confused to make the skin texture like this one.
Right. Right. Well, let's think about that because I have to think about it myself.
They have a lot of bone in the skin, so.
Right, but there is a pattern. It definitely is not random. There's definitely a consistency to how it's there. So what we'll do is we'll look at the musculature first, and then we'll worry about the skin details once the muscles are all put in place.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, so if I were to keep going, you guys are welcome to, maybe we should just end it, but let me just kind of keep going, roughing in the form. So at this point, all I'm going to be doing is probably just doing that, just kind of getting the muscles, the shapes a little bit more fleshed out, because before a lot of it was really just line work, and well, not necessarily. There's definitely some volumes there already. But this way I'm getting a little bit more of that randomness to the skin that breaks up the ultra smooth smoothness that's currently here in some of these shapes here. So this,
sorry,
yeah.
Chris. Can
Yeah.
I ask a question?
Sure.
Maybe it's a very simple question about the active points.
Yeah.
How much points is better for a rough sketch, and maybe how much points is for the final sculpture? Because I see your points is much higher than mine.
Yeah.
So,
I can't actually go higher than that though. Something's up with my ZBrush for Dynamesh that's preventing that. Although I can easily subdivide it higher if I wanted to. So if I went in, I can start going up quite high. To, up to like 60 million poly, or there you go, 67 million polys. For rough sketch, you want to start as low res as possible. Okay. And then you're slowly kind of building things out from there. So if you watch that first companion video where I started blocking this guy in, it's very, very low res. And then as you need the detail, then you're slowly adding in more to the Dynamesh if you wanted to go the Dynamesh way. Dynamesh is really good if you want to, just keep pulling out forms and having all those polygons fill in. It's quite useful for that. So
yes, actually, why use the Dynamesh things? I make the resolution is like 900, but it's still very low resolution in the model, in the actual model. So,
right.
Yeah, so maybe I need more fine detail. I need to higher resolution of Dynamesh. Maybe change it.
Although I wouldn't suggest using Dynamesh to get like super fine detail. Like for this, we're getting like any kind of skin beyond like the basic folds that you see there. Yes. I'd probably not use Dynamesh. I'd probably go in and either do a quick retopology and start going into a subdivision workflow where I can have much higher polygons. Or I might decimate it a little bit. So we do have this feature here under geometry that allows us to reduce the count. So this is 4 million, but does it need to be 4 million to retain this level of detail? Because maybe 4 million is too high. So there's this decimate button, decimate and decimate. So as a default, both of these are on. But essentially, it's just a slider. So as I go higher with this, it's going to start reducing down the polys. Okay. So it's interactive. So we can kind of play around with this slider to kind of get to so right now you can see that it doesn't look much different from before, but instead of being 4 million polygons, we're now at 700,000. So I reduced it by 4 times. So it'll be a little bit easier to work with instead of that super dense mesh, because not everything needs to be as equally detailed, especially when we get into these bigger areas where it's going to be relatively smoother. compared to like the fingers and the toes, where you're gonna have to get a lot more detail around the face, and the eyes and stuff, where you need more detail. So, you know, start going back a little bit lower, especially if I don't need to pull anything else out and I'm starting to think about detail. What I might do is I might tessellate it so it's a little bit lower, it doesn't look any different. And then I'd consider, you know, starting to use maybe my sculptress brushes to only add details in specific areas, as opposed to equally dividing the detail over everything, where everything doesn't necessarily need all of that information at the moment.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. Because don't forget, we still have to retopologize it. And after that, and we transfer whatever the detail is we have, we can then start going in and adding in more fine detail, because we can get up to the 67 million polys or whatnot. So.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah. So it's a process. There's a process there, but yeah. Cool. So what I'm going to do is I'll probably keep going with this guy, make another video on Friday. Just in terms of just finishing off the sculpt to a point where maybe we could be before going into you know, adding in slightly higher level details, not necessarily like scales and stuff like that, but just higher level wrinkles and things like that, just to finish it off at this point before moving on to the retopology. But if you haven't had a chance to watch the other two videos, they're there, and you can just kind of watch them in fast forward, because they do go through quite a bit as well. All right, so any other last minute questions, or are we good? Okay, from your silence, I think that you're either good or you've left already. You're eating lunch, maybe.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Chris.
All right, thanks, guys. So let me stop the recording. I'll post this. You know, the takeaway today is just going through those extra tools. It's unfortunate about the VDMs, because it should have just worked. I don't know why it's not working. It might have something to do with the morph target on the character, maybe, but I have to look into that. Of course, if I do it again, it'll probably just work, but who knows?
Okay.
All right. So I guess I'll see you guys Monday.
Yeah, see you.
See you.
All right. See you guys.
See you Monday.
Yeah, see you guys. Okay, I'm
See
gonna
you.
stop.